Chapter 2178. Hiss. Bang. The starry sky suddenly started burning. Both of them had utilized their full strength this time. Dao Xian stared fixedly at Yi Xian, who was getting closer and closer, and then she suddenly clenched her right fist and swung it forward. Boundless Nirvana. Bang. With this punch, a terrifying fist light suddenly erupted from her fist. As this fist light appeared, the entire medium world started to tremble. The might of this punch was sufficient to destroy the entire middle world. However, Dao Xian's punch hadn't targeted the middle world. She'd converged her strength onto a single point and targeted Yi Xian. A wisp of a ferocious smile arose on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth when facing this terrifying punch, and then he swiftly drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. It was a sword technique that he hadn't utilized for a very long time. At this instant, Yi Xian overlapped madly. One after another dreadful energy erupted in front of Yi Xian like a volcanic eruption. When that punch collided head-on with Yi Xian's countless overlapped rays of sword light. Bang! Suddenly, an explosion resounded throughout the middle world. Countless people were horrified, and they raised their heads to look towards this area while their eyes were filled with astonishment. On the other hand, Mu Xian and Lan Shan had started retreating madly since a long time ago, and they'd moved far away from Yi Xian and Dao Xian. As that terrifying force erupted, Yi Xian and Dao Xian were suddenly blasted flying. At the instant that Yi Xian's figure was blasted flying, his body had started to be obliterated bit by bit. However, the speed at which his body was being obliterated wasn't so fast this time. So, his body was repairing itself at the same time that it was being obliterated. This time, the speed at which he repaired himself was faster than the speed at which his body was obliterated. So, Yi Xian's body was preserved. However, his countenance was pale as a sheet of paper, and his entire body was covered in blood. The strength of this punch had heavily injured him. Dao Xian had stopped moving as well, and her body had started to be obliterated while her soul was swiftly dissipating as well. However, just like Yi Xian, this universe was constantly repairing her body and soul. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly raised her head and looked at Dao Xian Yi. Her lips curled into a ferocious smile, and in the next moment, she disappeared on the spot. Chi! A ray of sword light tore through the battlefield. In the distance, Dao Xuani raised his head and looked at the approaching sword light, his face expressionless. When the sword light arrived in front of her, she suddenly put her palms together, and an invisible barrier appeared in front of her. Boom! Yi Xian's sword struck the barrier, causing it to tremble slightly before cracking open. However, it didn't shatter. In the distance, Yi Xian was just about to attack again. Right at this moment, Dao Xuani suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian swiftly raised his head, and at this moment, an afterimage had arrived in front of him. Yi Xian was expressionless. With a thought, countless flying swords suddenly appeared around him. The two of them once again chose to fight head-on. Boom! Countless rays of sword light were destroyed, and Dao Xuani suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's throat. Right when she was about to exert force, a sword was suddenly pressed against her throat. The two of them who were very close to each other exchanged a glance, and in the next moment, Dao Xuani suddenly exerted force. Crack! Yi Xian's throat directly shattered, and her soul was forced out of her body by Dao Xuani. At practically the exact same moment, Yi Xian's sword stabbed into Dao Xuani's throat, and then she suddenly slashed it. Chi! Dao Xuani's throat was directly torn apart. At this moment, she had no choice but to abandon her body and escape with her soul. At this moment, both of them were in soul form. After they became souls, Yi Xian vanished on the spot once more. Dao Xuani suddenly raised her head, and in the next moment, her soul directly transformed into numerous afterimages that shot out explosively. Bang! Another explosion resounded in the heavens and the earth, and then both souls retreated explosively at the same time. While Yi Xian was retreating, with a thought, numerous flying swords suddenly slashed towards the distant Dao Xuani. In an instant, sword energy crisscrossed the heavens and the earth, and sword light filled the air. In the distance, the corners of Dao Xuani's mouth curled up slightly, and a ferocious expression appeared on her face. She suddenly stretched out her right hand, and then suddenly clenched it. In an instant, the space before her suddenly transformed into a huge black vortex. When Yi Xian's sword light entered this vortex, all of them were distorted, and then they were shattered and obliterated. In the next moment, she suddenly charged forward and suddenly smashed her elbow towards Yi Xian. This smash caused the entire heavens and earth to directly split apart like a spider web, and it was extremely terrifying. In the face of this terrifying elbow, Yi Xian suddenly grinned ferociously. In the next moment, he transformed into a sword and suddenly slashed forward. He fought head-on. At this moment, it was time to see who could survive. Bang! An expanse of sword light suddenly shattered, and then Yi Xian was directly blasted back. Meanwhile, Dao Xuani suddenly pressed forward and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly and mysteriously vanished on the spot, and when he appeared again, he was already over 30 kilometers away. After he stopped, he opened his palm, and a sword suddenly condensed within it. He slowly closed his eyes, and the sword in his hand trembled violently. In the next moment, he suddenly opened his left hand. Sword. As soon as he spoke, the starry sky trembled, and then countless swords suddenly shot through space to arrive above Yi Xian. There were over 1,000,000 swords. At this moment, numerous terrifying sword auras enveloped the entire medium world. In the starry sky, Mu Xian and Lan Shan's expressions had become solemn. At this moment, they suddenly realized that they seemed to have slightly underestimated Yi Xian. This idiot's attainments in the sword Dao are really not bad. In the starry sky, Yi Xian pressed his fingers together and swept them across the sword in his hand. In the next moment, his eyes directly turned blood red, and in an instant, his soul started burning once more. At the same time, his blood started burning as well. Bang! Bang! The moment his blood started burning, the sword in his hand directly turned blood red. Not only that, but the 1,000,000 swords behind him also turned blood red. Below, Mu Xian glared at Yi Xian and said angrily, "Damn it! Why does he burn his soul like it's a game? He burns it when he wants it to, and stops it when he wants it to." Lan Shan stared at Yi Xian, his expression quite unsightly. How many times had Yi Xian burned his soul? He couldn't remember. In any case, this fella burned his soul, body, and blood whenever he fought. Most importantly, this fella still didn't die. This was really King ridiculous. In fact, the reason why Yi Xian could do this was because of the profound green sword. After he swallowed the profound green sword, his soul directly reached the limit of immortal realm, and not just any ordinary limit of immortal realm. Because although the sword was gone, the profound green sword's special characteristics were still there, such as its special characteristic of suppressing the soul. Because of this special characteristic, Yi Xian could burn his soul crazily without completely vanishing. It was the profound green sword that gave him the ability to burn his soul and not die. Opposite Yi Xian, Dao Xian was expressionless. She opened her palm, and the infinite God ruler appeared in her hand. At this moment, she no longer looked down on Yi Xian. Nor did she dare to look down on him. Up until now, Yi Xian was getting stronger every second. Although her realm was one level higher than Yi Xian's combat strength was no weaker than hers, although she also felt that it was ridiculous. At this moment, a huge white dragon suddenly appeared on the battlefield. It was the spiritual dragon, the leader of the 36 spiritual veins. The spiritual dragon looked at Yi Xian and Dao Xian in the distance, its face extremely gloomy. "Are you trying to destroy this medium world?" Yi Xian turned to look at the spiritual dragon, his eyes like a sea of blood. "Scram." The spiritual dragon glared at Yi Xian, then scram. After saying that, it turned around and turned into a white light, disappearing into the horizon. Everyone, Yi Xian's face froze. Damn it. What's going on? Mu Xian spoke solemnly, the spiritual dragon is afraid. Mist Mountain fell silent. Afraid? Actually, they were afraid as well. If they had to face Yi Xian alone, then they wouldn't hesitate to turn around and flee as well. The current Yi Xian wasn't someone they could resist. Yi Xian gazed at Dao Xian, and then he didn't waste his breath at all. He just vanished abruptly. Hiss. A ray of blood-red light tore through the battlefield. At the same time, the million swords behind him suddenly tore through the starry sky and slashed towards Dao Xian. At this moment, all the experts in the medium world were horrified. Because Yi Xian's attack had severely threatened the medium world. Dao Xian slowly closed her eyes. She held the ruler vertically between her brows with her right hand, and then she placed the fingers of her left hand on top of the ruler before sliding it down slowly. In the next moment, she suddenly opened her eyes, and then she suddenly swept the infinite god ruler, infinite. An extremely terrifying force suddenly swept out with this swing of the ruler. What was infinite? It was limitless and without end. The infinite god ruler had been created by the ancestor of the solitary mystery path, and it contained boundless energy. The two of them collided head-on once more. Bang! In an instant, countless rays of light were obliterated, and the space around Dao Xian was being destroyed madly. As for Yi Xian himself, he was instantly blasted flying. But a moment later, he forcefully charged towards Dao Xian once more. In the distance, Dao Xian had been completely disregarding the countless rays of light that were tearing through her surroundings. She suddenly stomped her right foot on the ground and vanished on the spot, and then she swept the ruler towards Yi Xian's head. Neither of them retreated. It was a method of mutual destruction. Right at this moment, a Xiao Ta suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian's head, and it forcefully resisted Dao Xian's attack. At practically the exact same moment, Yi Xian's right hand transformed into a sword that stabbed into Dao Xian's soul. Bang! Bang! The Xiao Ta howled miserably, and then it was swept flying for over 100 kilometers. However, it still didn't shatter into pieces because it was supported by Arya's horn. Yi Xian stared fixedly at Dao Xian, and he spoke fiercely, "Woman, it's over." As he spoke, he suddenly exerted force with his right hand and was about to completely shatter Dao Xian's soul. But right at this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the infinite god ruler in Dao Xian's hand. Bang! Yi Xian, who was very close to it, was sent flying hundreds of thousands of feet away. And when he stopped, his soul started to become transparent. Everyone gazed at the infinite god ruler, and then a soul slowly floated out from within it. It was a middle-aged man. All of them were stunned. Who is he? The middle-aged man gazed at the slightly weakened Dao Xian and grinned, "Very good. I never expected that a peerless genius like you would actually appear in my solitary mystery path after a few tens of thousands of years." Ha ha ha. Mu Xian suddenly exclaimed, "He's the ancestor of the solitary mystery path, Ji Xian. What the fuck? Could he be an expert above the Eternal Realm? The Eternal Realm?" As soon as these words were spoken, Lan Shan and the others were petrified on the spot. Dao Xian gazed at Ji Xian and spoke softly, "Ancestral Master." Ji Xian smiled, "Recuperate first." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and gazed at Yi Xian. Meanwhile, young Nianxue had appeared by Yi Xian's side. She held Yi Xian's weak soul in her arms and spoke in a trembling voice, "Little brother." Yi Xian's soul was so weak that it was almost translucent. He grabbed young Nianxue's hand and spoke softly, "Big sister, I really can't hold on any longer." Young Nianxue held Yi Xian tightly and spoke in a trembling voice, "Enough. Enough. You've done enough." Yi Xian grinned, but his smile was pale. He turned around and looked towards the depths of the starry sky, and the image of a plain dress appeared in the depths of his mind. It would be regretful to die just like that. However, life and death were not up to anyone. Yi Xian's eyes slowly closed, and the hand that was holding Yang Nianshue's hand also softened at this moment. Big sister, tell Dad that I'm sorry. I've disappointed him. As soon as he finished speaking, his breath was as thin as silk, almost non-existent. At this moment, the space-time not far from Yi Xian suddenly split open, and a woman slowly walked out. The woman was wearing a plain dress. The main body. The woman in the plain dress slowly walked in front of Yi Xian. She bent over and took Yi Xian from Yang Lianshuang's arms. She gently caressed Yi Xian's cheek, and her eyes were filled with tenderness, but gradually, this tenderness turned into coldness. Clear the area. As soon as she finished speaking, a sword suddenly descended from the starry sky of Middle World. In an instant, the entire Middle World started to burn. Walking Dao sword. Enforcing justice on behalf of heaven? That was in the past. And now? It was enforcing justice on behalf of its brother. Chapter 11, Breaking My Personal Record. Thank you. 592785520 readers have given me 330 monthly votes this month, brothers who have never spoken to me, and brothers who have come to support me, vast blue starry sky, who have given me 264 monthly votes, and a low-profile brother, Fa Xiaoxian, who has given me 222 monthly votes. There are also many readers who have given me gifts. Please forgive me for not being able to list them all, because there are too many. If I were to list them all, I could write a chapter directly. I have seen every single one of your votes and gifts. Really, I am very touched, because you could have read it for free, and you could have not spent any money, but you still support me. There is nothing I can do to repay you, so I can only write good books, and repay you with more chapters. Thank you to all the readers who have quietly voted and gifted. I know that there are many of them who have voted and gifted me, but they do not say anything. I am really grateful for everyone's support. Finally, those who have money, support me, and those who have no money, support me. Students don't want gifts, and those who are second generation like Yi Xian, please ignore this. Also, yesterday, a brother in the group said that I will not break out more than 5 chapters today, or else, he will do a handstand and have diarrhea. Brother, do you mean what you say? Chapter 2179. As the path sword descended slowly, the entire middle world started to boil. In the next moment, the entire middle world started to burn and gradually became illusory. Everyone was horrified. It was going to annihilate the entire middle world. The expressions of Mu Xian and the others changed drastically at the sight of this, and their eyes were filled with terror. How strong was the aura of this sword? Despair. At this moment, they were in despair. They couldn't even muster the thought of resisting this sword. At this moment, they felt like ants in front of this sword. No, they were even inferior to ants. Ji Xian stared at the woman in the plain dress, and his eyes were solemn for the first time. Your Excellency, a strand of sword light suddenly pierced his throat, and his voice stopped abruptly. Ji Xian's pupils constricted, and his mind went blank as if he'd been struck by lightning. How is this possible? That was the only thought in his mind. He was actually killed in an instant. Although he was just a wisp of clone, he was boundless realm. Even if it was a wisp of clone, in this sort of place, that was a godlike existence too. How could he be killed in an instant? At this moment, his mind was in a daze. Just at this moment, the spiritual dragon that had rolled away appeared once more. She looked at Tianming, who was holding Yi Xian in his arms, and said with a trembling voice, "Boss. If your sword descends, this middle world will be gone." Tianming glanced at the spiritual dragon with a calm expression. The spiritual dragon's soul trembled from this gaze, and she hurriedly said, "I understand. I understand. I'll scram right away." "Boss, do as you please." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished into the horizon. Damn it. I don't care about the middle world anymore. Staying alive is the way of the king. Tianming looked at Yi Xian, who was in his arms. At this moment, Yi Xian's soul had actually recovered completely. Not only that, but his body had recovered as well. Yang Nianxue was dumbfounded. What's going on? Yi Xian opened his eyes. When he saw Tianming, he was slightly stunned, and then he smiled bitterly. Qing-er. I'm the king of reliance again. Qing-er gently caressed Yi Xian's cheek and softly said, I don't mind. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, young Nianxue lightly touched Yi Xian's hand and then gestured to the starry sky. Yi Xian looked up at the starry sky. At this moment, the starry sky was already burning. Qing-er wants to destroy the entire middle universe. Yi Xian grabbed Qing-er's hand and said softly, forget it. My skills are inferior to others, and I can't beat them. I deserve to be beaten. Don't implicate the other creatures in this universe. Tianming nodded. Whatever Big Brother says. As soon as she finished speaking, the path sword trembled slightly, and then it transformed into a ray of light that descended by her side. With the disappearance of the path sword, all the experts and living beings in the middle world felt relieved. Just a little bit more and this middle world would have been finished. Yang Nianxue looked at Tianming with a strange expression. Actually, she had basically never seen Tianming before. She had only heard of the legends of Tianming. This was an existence that had hung her father up and beaten up. Wasn't she said to be very cold? At this moment, she felt that Tianming was quite easy to talk to. Tianming suddenly looked at Ji Xian in the distance. The latter stared at her and said mockingly, trying to bully me because my true body isn't here? True body. Alive. Hearing this, Mu Xian and Lan Shan instantly felt hope reignite. This Ji Xian is actually still alive. A super expert above the immortal realm. At this time, the path sword beside Tianming suddenly disappeared into Ji Xian's forehead. Ji Xian laughed loudly. What ability do you have to attack this clone of mine? If you have the ability, wait for my true body to descend. As he said this, he seemed to sense something and his pupils suddenly shrank. In the distant endless starry sky, in a certain city, a sword suddenly fell. As this sword fell, the entire floating city became illusory. Within the city, countless powerhouses suddenly looked up, their eyes filled with terror. Who was attacking? Was this going to destroy the seamless city? At this time, an angry roar suddenly resounded from the distant starry sky. How dare you? Who dares to distort spacetime and destroy the seamless city? Do you not want to live? F***CK. Master Tianming, it's you again. Master of Time greets Master Tianming. I kowtow to you. As he spoke, the sound of kowtowing suddenly resounded from the depths of the starry sky. His voice could only be heard by Tianming, but Tianming ignored him. That sword continued to fall straight down. At this time, an angry roar suddenly resounded from the city. Puny swordsman, how laughable. You actually want to use your true body and clone to kill me. How absurd, how laughable. As the voice fell, a middle-aged man charged into the sky. The middle-aged man directly punched the path sword. This middle-aged man was Ji Xian's true body. The moment Ji Xian punched, the path sword directly disappeared into his forehead. There were no fancy tricks. It was an instant kill. It was that simple and direct. An unreasonable instant kill. In the sky, Ji Xian was stunned. He was instantly killed. His true body was actually instantly killed? How was that possible? Was he dreaming? Soon, Ji Xian realized that he was not dreaming because he was disappearing bit by bit, the kind that was about to be erased. At this moment, Ji Xian was shocked and he hurriedly roared, Woman, do you know who my master is? My master is the left protector of the Time Court, the right-hand man of the Time Master. Do you know who the Time Master is? F***CK. At this moment, a shocked voice suddenly resounded in the starry sky. It was the Time Master. The Time Master suddenly appeared in front of Ji Xian. When Ji Xian saw the Time Master, he was first stunned and then overjoyed. He was about to speak, but the Time Master's legs weakened and he directly knelt down. He said with a trembling voice, "Master Tianming. I swear by the Tao of Time, I don't know this person. My time court has nothing to do with this person." At this moment, the Time Master actually cried. He really cried. Scared. He was really shocked to the extreme. Those who had not fought with Tianming would not know how terrifying she was. Once upon a time, he also thought that he was invincible in the world, until one day, he met Tianming. On that day, he was defeated. One sword. He, the great Time Master, could not even take one sword from her. If he had not knelt down quickly, he, the Time Master, would no longer exist in this world. If there really was a god in this world, then Tianming was even more terrifying than a god. At this moment, he did not expect that his people from the Time Court would actually offend Tianming, and the other party even mentioned him. Oh my god. This was a trap for him. Seeing the Time Master actually kneeling there, Ji Xian's mind went blank. In their hearts, the Time Master was a godlike existence. And now, this godlike existence was actually kneeling there, trembling. Oh my god. Who was that woman? At this moment, Ji Xian's face was ashen. At this moment, the walking sword in Ji Xian's body slowly floated out and then pointed at the Time Master. The Time Master was shocked and hurriedly kowtowed. "Master Tianming, I and young Master Yi are sworn brothers. I and young Master Yi are sworn brothers. Young Master Yi." The walking sword trembled slightly, and in the next moment, it vanished. Seeing this, the Time Master's body went limp, and he almost collapsed. He felt extremely fortunate. Young Master Yi. Master Tianming really gave young Master Yi face. Fortunately, he had formed a good karma with young Master Yi, otherwise, he would be finished. As if thinking of something, the Time Master suddenly turned to look at Ji Xian, who was about to vanish completely, and roared furiously, "F***ck your ancestors." As he spoke, he slapped out with his palm. Bang! Ji Xian was directly wiped out. Ji Xian. In the middle world. In front of Tianming, Ji Xian's clone gradually vanished, and he looked at Tianming with eyes filled with confusion. "Who the hell are you?" He did not know what had happened to his main body, but he knew that his main body was gone. His clone was like a duckweed without roots. Even if Tianming did not act, he would vanish completely. Tianming did not answer Ji Xian. She turned to look at Mu Xian and Lan Shan, and their expressions changed drastically. Lan Shan stared at Tianming, "Fight her to the death." Mu Xian nodded, "All right." Lan Shan's expression was ferocious. "Woman, I don't believe you're really that strong." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Tianming. And he chose to ignite his soul and body as well. If Yi Xian could ignite his soul, so could he. They were all human, so why should he be afraid? Needless to say, Lan Shan did have some ability. After he ignited his soul and body, his aura had reached an extremely terrifying level. Although it was not as strong as Yi Xian and Dao Xian, it was still extremely terrifying. In the distance, Tianming looked at Mu Xian with a calm expression. When Lan Shan was only a few dozen meters away from Tianming, a sword suddenly pierced through his forehead. Bang! Lan Shan's body shook violently, and then it became illusory. Instant kill. He didn't even have the ability to fight back. Moreover, he did not even see Tianming attack. Lan Shan looked at Tianming in the distance, and he was slightly at a loss. Am I that weak? It was so silent that a pin drop could be heard. Am I that weak? That's a supreme exalt. In the shadows, the face of the branch president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, Yu Xian, was extremely pale. At this moment, he realized why the pavilion master had given the Dark Heaven token to Yi Xian. It was because he was too narrow-minded. Meanwhile, Lan Shan suddenly turned to look at Mu Xian. Why didn't you attack? Mu Xian spoke with a trembling voice. Is there any point? Lan Shan laughed miserably. No. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely. He was directly wiped out. Mu Xian gazed at Tianming, and he hesitated for a moment before he said, "Can I spare your life if I surrender?" As soon as he finished speaking, a sword suddenly pierced through the space between his brows and was wiped out. Everyone was speechless. In the depths of the starry sky, the spirit dragon trembled with fear. Fortunately, if** cut off quickly. The world laughs at me for being a coward, and I laugh at their stupidity. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished into the boundless starry sky. In the end, Tianming turned to look at Dao Xian. Dao Xian stared at Tianming with a calm expression, and there wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes. Tianming gazed at Dao Xian. Is it someone you called? Dao Xian replied with a question. Who are you? Hiss. A sword suddenly pierced through the space between Dao Xian's brows, and then his body stiffened while his soul instantly became illusory. Tianming gazed at Dao Xian. I asked you to answer, not ask. P.S. Wait a moment, I'll be right there. Chapter 2180. Stars flickered in Yang Nianshue's eyes when she heard Tianming. How domineering. That's how women should be. I'll stab my sword through the head of anyone I don't like. Haha. Yang Nianshue started to daydream, and she couldn't help but start laughing as she thought about it. Dao Xuani stared at Tianming from afar. You're very strong, but I'm not afraid of you. She wasn't even afraid of death, so she naturally wasn't afraid of anyone. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, Qing, didn't call for help just now. Ji Xian came out on his own. Tianming turned to look at Yi Xian. Do you need me to deal with her for you? Yi Xian smiled. There's no need. Because I defeated her just now. If Ji Xian hadn't appeared at the last moment, then he would have killed Dao Xuani. Tianming nodded slightly. She flicked her sleeve, and the walking sword returned to her hand. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, Qing, little soul. Tianming suddenly opened her palm. In an instant, the entire world became illusory, and then a sword appeared in her hand. The green profound sword. Tianming suddenly said, Soul, come. As soon as she finished speaking, the green profound sword trembled slightly. In the next moment, little soul's soul was condensed once more. It wasn't creating a new soul, it was soul return. Dao Xuani's eyes were filled with disbelief when he witnessed this scene. Resurrection? Dao Xuani couldn't help but ask, how did you do that? Qing, suddenly waved her right hand. Slap. Dao Xuani's soul was slapped flying into the starry sky. Yang Nianshue's expression froze when she witnessed this scene. Tianming's temper really isn't very good. The green profound sword in her hand trembled slightly. Tianming gazed at the sword. She pressed her fingers together to hold the sword lightly, and then she swung it down. As soon as she swung it down, two large words appeared on the sword, invincible. Invincible? Yi Xian was stunned. Tianming placed the green profound sword in front of Yi Xian. I have given her a new life. From today onwards, no matter what level you are at, as long as you activate this sword, she will be able to forcefully raise your cultivation by 2 realms without any side effects. That's not all. From now on, this sword contains the power of time. So long as you draw on the power of time, you can destroy all techniques and Daos in the world. Not only that, from now on, no technique can harm this sword, no Daos can suppress it, and no time can destroy it. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. The Qingxian sword was going to be invincible? At this time, Xiao Ta suddenly floated in front of Tianming. Xiao Ta, am willing to go through water and tread on fire for young master. If I don't die, the young master won't die. If you want the young master to die, you must first kill me, Xiao Ta. For the young master, I dare to do anything. Yi Xian was speechless. Yang Nianxue glanced at Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta, you'll be beaten to death. Xiao Ta, Tianming looked at Xiao Ta, not saying a word. Xiao Ta hesitated, then said, Sister Tianming. I don't want to be just a pagoda anymore. Tianming's expression was calm. Then what do you want to do? Xiao Ta immediately said, I want to be an invincible pagoda. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn, isn't it still a pagoda? I thought you wanted to be a human. Tianming opened her palm, and Xiao Ta fell into her hand. She put her fingers together and lightly touched Xiao Ta's pagoda. Xiao Ta trembled slightly, and in the next moment, his pagoda body actually started to change. Originally, his pagoda body was golden, but now, it was gradually turning dark purple. Tianming looked at Xiao Ta. I used sword qi to shape your body, but you're too weak to withstand the power of my sword qi. So, I controlled the power of the sword qi, and used less than 1/1,000,000th of it. Hearing this, Yang Nianxue, who was at the side, was dumbfounded. Her mouth was so wide that an egg could fit inside. Yi Xian was also a little confused. 1/1,000,000th of it? His mind was blank. Xiao Ta suddenly asked, Sister Tianming, how much is 1/1,000,000th of it? Tianming was silent. Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment, then said, Sister Tianming, how big is the gap between me and you? Tell me honestly, I, Xiao Ta, can withstand any blow. Tianming glanced at Xiao Ta. A little bit. A little bit. Xiao Ta instantly became excited. Sister Tianming, you're not lying to me? Tianming nodded. Xiao Ta suddenly laughed out loud. Sister Tianming, I will work hard. One day, I, Xiao Ta, will surpass you. Tianming, Yang Nianxue sighed softly. Xiao Ta's brain is screwed. Yang Nianxue seemed to have thought of something, and she hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian's side. She pulled on Yi Xian's sleeve lightly, and then she said softly, Little brother, you promised big sister. A sword. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, can you forge a sword for big sister? If it was anyone else, then he would definitely refuse. But big sister was different. If big sister hadn't risked her life to protect him, then he would have been dead by now. Glanced at Yang Nianxue, and then she pondered deeply for a moment before she said, What do you want? Yang Nianxue hurriedly said, Anything. Anything you want. Tianming nodded slightly, and then she opened her palm. In an instant, the entire world trembled, and then countless snowflakes surged over from all directions. As the snowflakes entered the world, the temperature of the entire world instantly plummeted. Meanwhile, Tianming opened her palm, and a strand of sword energy appeared in front of her. The snowflake surged into the sword energy, and it didn't take long for a sword of ice and snow to condense into a sword of ice and snow. Tianming gazed at Yang Nianxue, use snow as the body of the sword, and my sword energy as the soul. As she spoke, she placed the sword before Yang Nianxue. Yang Nianxue hurriedly took the sword, and then her eyes lit up. The sword felt cold in her hand, but it wasn't cold. She didn't know if it was strong, but it was beautiful. Moreover, it was snow. Her name was Yang Nianxue. She really liked this sword. As if she'd thought of something, Yang Nianxue suddenly asked, Big brother Tianming, how much strength did you use in that sword energy? Tianming gazed at Yang Nianxue, are you sure you want to know? Yang Nianxue immediately shook her head, I understand. I understand. Saying that, she smiled bitterly, Big brother Tianming, is there anything in this world that can withstand the power of your complete sword energy? Tianming nodded, there is. Yang Nianxue was a little curious, what is it? Tianming looked at Yang Nianxue, that arrogant little girl's body. Arrogant little girl. Yang Nianxue was stunned at first, and then her expression changed drastically, F***ck. Area. Area. Hearing Tian Ming's words, Yi Xian also felt a little embarrassed. Area. If he used Area's body as the body of the sword, and then used Qing, or sword energy as the soul, thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly felt a little ashamed. Area was a very loyal friend. I can't think like this. Yang Nianxue glanced at Tian Ming, and began to worry for Area. Area was good at everything, but she didn't like to admit defeat. She was stubborn, and even if she couldn't beat her opponent, she would fight first and then talk later. At this time, Tian Ming looked at Yi Xian. I'm leaving. Yi Xian was stunned, and then hurriedly asked, where to? Tian Ming said, the Milky Way. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Qing, can you tell me what you're doing in the Milky Way? Tian Ming was silent. Yi Xian said softly, can't you say? Tian Ming shook his head, of course I can. I'm going to the Milky Way to suppress someone. Yi Xian slightly frowned, someone? Suppress? Tian Ming nodded. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, can you kill that person? Tian Ming looked at Yi Xian, it's a little complicated. Complicated. Yi Xian was silent. Qing also felt complicated, and it seemed this matter wasn't simple. Tian Ming said softly, you've changed a lot. In fact, she was a little surprised. She thought Yi Xian would ask her for advice, but Yi Xian didn't. I've finally matured. Yi Xian smiled. After the previous battle, not only did his strength increase greatly, but his state of mind also underwent earth-shattering changes. If one didn't force themselves, they would never know how good they were. Qing suddenly walked in front of Yi Xian and said softly, good luck. After saying that, she hugged Yi Xian and turned to leave. At this time, Yang Nianxue suddenly said, Boss Tian Ming, can I ask you something? Qing looked at Yang Nianxue, not saying a word. Yang Nianxue was a little embarrassed. Yi Xian smiled, ask away. Yang Nianxue hurriedly returned to Xiao Ta's room and took out the ancient book written by the mysterious pavilion master. She flipped to the first page and said, Boss Tian Ming, what do you think of the pavilion master's theory of the universe? Qing glanced at the book in silence. Yang Nianxue wanted to ask something else, but Qing suddenly said, this person's knowledge far surpasses Miss Nian's. Surpasses Miss Nian's. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically when he had heard that. He had to admit that he was shocked. Sister Nian. After all, how terrifying was Sister Nian's wisdom and knowledge. She was practically second only to the three swords. But this mysterious pavilion master's knowledge actually surpasses Sister Nian's? Is he really that heaven-defying? Qing suddenly withdrew her gaze and looked at Yi Xian. I'm leaving. Then she hugged Yi Xian gently. Then she turned around. She disappeared as soon as she turned around. Yi Xian and Yang Nianxue fell silent. Is this mysterious pavilion master really that terrifying? A trace of worry flashed through Yi Xian's eyes as if he'd thought of something. Qing is suppressing something. All of a sudden, he began to worry. The stronger it is, the more he feels that the universe isn't simple. It really is endless. Are Qing, Dad, and Big Brother really the ceiling of the boundless universe? Yi Xian fell silent. Meanwhile, Yang Nianxue suddenly said, Brother, I'm leaving as well. Yi Xian looked at Yang Nianxue. You're leaving as well? Yang Nianxue nodded. I've been out for a long time. Mother must be worried. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Are you going back to inherit the family property? Yang Nianxue laughed heartily. Yes. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, Sister, can you give me some when the time comes? How lowly. Yang Nianxue smiled mischievously. Of course. Of course. As soon as she finished speaking, she hugged Yi Xian lightly. Brother, good luck. I look forward to the day you crush Dad. If you have any difficulties, you can look for me. I can't fight, but I have a lot of money. I'll use my money to smash them to death. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished into the horizon. Yi Xian fell silent, and he suddenly felt a sense of reluctance. Suddenly, the sky in the distance split apart, and then a beautiful woman walked out from within it. She glanced at the surroundings and said, "Where's the president of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's branch, Yu Xian?" Yu Xian was stunned, and then he hurriedly said, "I am. May I know who you are?" The woman glanced at Yu Xian, and then she withdrew a command token. "According to the orders of the pavilion master, you're no longer the president of this branch. Your actions will be judged by the elders." Yu Xian's face was ashen. "I'm finished." He knows that his future is gone. The woman turned around to look at Yi Xian, and then she bowed slightly. "Respected young Master Yi, this matter was caused by my Immortal Treasure Pavilion." Yi Xian suddenly withdrew the Black Heaven token, and then he tossed it aside like trash. Tui. He tossed the token aside, and then he turned around and left. The woman was speechless. "Thank you to all the friends who tipped me yesterday. There were too many to list. Thank you very much. It'll erupt again on the 15th of this month, and it might even be earlier. Watch my writing speed. Thank you to all the readers for your support. Seeking monthly votes." Chapter 2181. The pretty woman sighed as she looked at the Black Heaven token that Yi Xian had tossed aside. Yu Xian's actions were a devastating blow to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's reputation. The Black Heaven token. This was equivalent to someone recognized by the pavilion master, but Yu Xian had acted smart and violated the rules set by the pavilion master. The pretty woman turned to look at the pale Yu Xian. "There's a very, very high chance that you'll be sentenced to death. Even if you're not sentenced to death, you'll be imprisoned in the seamless world forever." Yu Xian, the pretty woman looked at the black-robed middle-aged man. "Ah Wu, the pavilion master allowed you and Yu Xian to run the Immortal Treasure Pavilion together. Yu Xian didn't respect the pavilion master, so why don't you do the same?" Ah Wu bowed slightly. "Esteemed ambassador, Wu knows his mistake." The pretty woman shook her head. "The elders have decided to take back everything from you, including your cultivation. Do you have any objections? If you do, I won't do it for now. You can appeal." Ah Wu bowed deeply. "Esteemed ambassador, I have no objections." The pretty woman nodded slightly. She spread open her palm and pressed it down lightly. As soon as she did that, Wu's aura instantly dispersed like tidewater. It wasn't long before Ah Wu had become an ordinary person, and his appearance had practically instantly aged after he became an ordinary person. His current lifespan was less than 10 years. Ah Wu's face was pale, and he didn't dare speak. He had no more in this lifetime. Although he was unwilling, he had no complaints because everything he had was given to him by the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. Without the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, he would only be an ordinary person and wouldn't have his current status. The pretty woman glanced at Ah Wu and sighed inwardly. Actually, Ah Wu deserved to die. He didn't respect the pavilion master's orders. This was the #1 crime in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. The pavilion master was like a god in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, and the elders respected the pavilion master so much that ordinary people couldn't imagine it. The elders were shocked that something like this had happened here, and a few old fellows who had been in closed-door cultivation for tens of thousands of years had come out. Anger. She'd never seen the elders so angry. A mere branch president dared to disrespect the pavilion master's orders. This was unbearable for those old fellows. The pretty woman glanced at Yu Xian and shook her head slightly. Yu Xian, the mastermind, would probably suffer a fate worse than death. Ignoring the two of them, the pretty girl picked up the Shantian token that Yi Xian had thrown onto the ground and disappeared into the horizon. After the pretty woman disappeared, 2 men in black appeared and took Yu Xian away. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes closed. Supremacy. In terms of realm, he was now in the Supreme Realm. Moreover, he was a Supreme who could fight against an Eternal Realm powerhouse. At this moment, Yi Xian felt a little emotional. Forcing himself. The previous battle with Dao Xian Yi was the first time in so many years that he didn't call for help. I can't beat him. Indeed, in the beginning, he had already despaired several times. He really couldn't beat them. But was he supposed to give up just because he couldn't win? Actually, the scariest thing about humans was not despair, nor was it powerlessness, but giving up. No matter how hopeless the situation was, as long as one didn't give up, there would be hope. But once you gave up, even if it wasn't a hopeless situation, you would still be finished. Seeming to think of something, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Looking back on the past, he was really sloppy and flashy before. He didn't have the heart of a powerhouse at all. It was time for him to grow up. Yi Xian took a deep breath. He opened his palm, and Little Soul appeared in his hand. Little Soul, I won't let anything happen to you in the future. Little Soul said, next time something happens, let Xiao Ta carry it. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta laughed. I'll carry it, I'll carry it. The current me has nothing to fear. Yi Xian, Little Soul, at this time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and a black box appeared in his hand. This was the box he took out from the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. What was in this box? Yi Xian curiously opened the box. Inside the box, there was a strange weapon. This weapon had a strange shape. It was completely black, and the front half looked like a pipe. It was as long as an adult's arm, but the back half was not a pipe. At this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, holy shit, isn't this a gun? Yi Xian frowned slightly. A gun? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, yes. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. A gun doesn't look like this, right? Xiao Ta said, this is a gun from the Milky Way, not here. The Milky Way. Yi Xian looked at the gun in the box and was a little puzzled. Xiao Ta, is this thing powerful? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, in the Milky Way, it's quite powerful. However, for cultivators of your level, this thing is useless. Of course, this could be left by the pavilion master. There should be something different. Yi Xian said, how do you use this thing? Xiao Ta smiled and said, it's very simple. Act cool. Oh, no, load it. Load it and you can use it. Yi Xian looked inside the box. Inside the box, there was a small box. He opened the box. There were 10 sharp objects that were as long as 2 thumbs. Xiao Ta suddenly said, this is a bullet. Yi Xian looked at the bullets. He found that these bullets had strange runes around them. At the top of these bullets, there was a blood-red dot. It was very strange. After Yi Xian pondered for a long time, he finally loaded the bullets. Just as the bullets were inserted into the gun, the entire gun body suddenly shook violently. Then, a voice suddenly sounded from the gun, please replenish your spiritual energy. Spiritual energy? Yi Xian hesitated and said, you can talk. That voice said, please don't talk nonsense. If you want to fire the gun, replenish your spiritual energy. Yi Xian's face immediately darkened. Damn, is it so arrogant? Yi Xian didn't bother with it. He took out a star vein. As soon as he took it out, it was directly absorbed by the gun. The gun said, the spiritual energy is less than 1,000th, and the power is only 1,000th. Do you want to fire? Yi Xian asked, less than 1,000th? That voice said, yes, the more spiritual energy, the more powerful it is. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, if there is enough spiritual energy, how powerful is it? That voice said, it shouldn't be a problem to kill you with one shot. Yi Xian was furious. Can you not be so arrogant? Do you know how strong my body is? That voice said indifferently, don't brag. If you have the guts, try it. Yi Xian immediately said, let's try it. Xiao Ta said with a smile, play with it. Let it know how terrifying your body is, young master. Yi Xian took out 1,000 star veins, and they were absorbed by the spear in an instant. Yi Xian's expression changed subtly when he saw this. At this moment, a white light suddenly erupted from the gun. The white light spread from the end of the gun to the tip. At the same time, that voice said, "You can begin." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he took out Xiao Ta and placed Xiao Ta at the muzzle of the gun. "Bring it on." Xiao Ta suddenly said, F***CK. "Young master, what do you mean?" Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly. "Xiao Ta, you're tougher than me. You take it." Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, "Young master, are you afraid?" Yi Xian's face darkened. "How could that be? Xiao Ta, you were just transformed by Qing, or sword energy. Do you have to be afraid of something like that?" Xiao Ta said indifferently, "I'm not afraid of it, but it's not necessary. I won't take it. You do it yourself." Yi Xian's face darkened. This Xiao Ta isn't easy to fool now. Yi Xian was about to speak when the beautiful woman from before suddenly appeared here. She gazed at Yi Xian and bowed slightly. "Young Master Yi. I'm here too." Yi Xian suddenly asked. "Miss, what realm are you at?" The beautiful woman grinned. "Half step to the boundless realm. Half step to the boundless realm." Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he heard this. Damn it. She's actually at the half step to the boundless realm. She's even stronger than Dao Xian? She continued. "Young master, I'm here to apologize." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he waved the spear in his hand and said, "Do you recognize this?" The beautiful woman glanced at the spear in her hand, and then she shook her head. "I haven't." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "You haven't?" The beautiful woman glanced at it once more, and then she shook her head. "I haven't." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "I obtained it by chance. I wonder how strong it is. Miss, can you allow me to test it?" The beautiful woman was slightly stunned, and then she smiled. "Young Master Yi wants to test its strength?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." The beautiful woman thought for a moment, and then she nodded. "All right." Before she came here, she was having quite a headache about how to obtain Yi Xian's understanding. Now that Yi Xian had made such a request, it was exactly what she wanted. Because in that way, it would be equivalent to her helping Yi Xian, and it would definitely be easier to negotiate. Yi Xian grinned when he saw the beautiful woman agree, and then he raised the spear and pointed it at her. "Miss, be careful." The beautiful woman smiled and said, "Bring it on." Yi Xian was about to pull the trigger when Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, you're holding the spear the wrong way around." Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. He hurriedly turned the spear around and aimed it at the beautiful woman in the distance. In the next moment, he directly pulled the trigger. Bang! A ray of white light suddenly surged out, and then the starry sky in an area of a few million kilometers was instantly obliterated. The woman's pupils constricted, and then she suddenly pressed her hands forward. However, her figure was blasted flying in the next moment. She flew out of Yi Xian's field of vision. At the same time, the bullet carried a powerful wave of energy as it swept towards the depths of the starry sky. It was extremely swift, and it vanished into the boundless universe in the blink of an eye. It flew out of the medium world. At this moment, Yi Xian himself had also retreated hundreds of thousands of feet, because the recoil of that spear attack was too dreadful. The most terrifying part was that his entire right hand had exploded apart when he stopped moving, and his entire body had cracked apart like a spider web. Yi Xian was stunned. "What's that?" Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "That thing isn't like any spear I've seen in the past." In the distance, Yi Xian gently stroked the spear in front of him with his slightly trembling left hand, and he said softly, "Xiao Ta, I've decided to change my occupation to become a spear cultivator." Xiao Ta was speechless. Chapter 2182. One had to admit that Yi Xian was indeed astonished. The might of this thing greatly exceeded his expectations. Putting aside that woman, just his current physical body was an existence that surpassed the limits of the sempiternal realm. However, it had been shattered so easily. Furthermore, it was merely the recoil. Seemingly thinking of something, Yi Xian hurriedly raised his head and looked into the distance. With this look, his expression immediately darkened. Because he could no longer sense that woman's aura. Could it be that she was already gone? Right at this time, at the far end of the starry sky, a phantom floated over. It was precisely that delicate and pretty woman. But at this moment, this woman's physical body was already gone. Furthermore, her soul was extremely illusory. Looking at the incomparably frail, delicate and pretty woman in front of him, a trace of guilt involuntarily welled up in Yi Xian's heart. He nearly blew her up with one shot. How shameful. The delicate and pretty woman looked at Yi Xian, somewhat at a loss. Young Master Yi. Weren't you a little too ruthless when you attacked? Yi Xian, the delicate and pretty woman looked at that spear in Yi Xian's hand, a trace of apprehension flashed across her eyes. This item is? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. Your pavilion master gave it to me. Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, you seem to be the one who took it yourself, right? Yi Xian said seriously in his heart, if you don't say and I don't say, who will know? Xiao Ta was silent for a long time before saying, that makes sense. Yi Xian, at this time, the delicate and pretty woman by the side suddenly said, the pavilion master gave it to you? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The delicate and pretty woman felt relieved. No wonder it's so terrifying. Yi Xian looked at the delicate and pretty woman. Miss, how do I address you? The delicate and pretty woman smiled slightly. Qinglian. Yi Xian said solemnly, Miss Qinglian, did you use your full strength just now? The delicate and pretty woman nodded. I did. Furthermore, one of my life-saving talismans has already been used up. Yi Xian asked, can this weapon kill boundless realm powerhouses? The pretty woman hesitated for a moment before she said, I'm afraid it's quite difficult. Difficult? At this time, a voice suddenly sounded out inside that spear. If there's sufficient spiritual energy, boundless realm powerhouses are trash. Yi Xian smiled and asked, what's your name? The voice said, Little Spear. Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, did your pavilion master give it to you? Little Spear said, yes. Yi Xian smiled and said, your pavilion master's name is the same as mine, I also like to choose simple names. Lil Spear said, I gave myself another name. Yi Xian was a little curious. What? Little Spear said, Big Spear. It sounds good, right? Yi Xian's expression froze. F***CK, is there a difference? Meanwhile, Qinglian suddenly said, the more spirit energy you have, the stronger it is? Little Spear said, yes. So long as there's sufficient spirit energy, then my might is boundless. Qinglian glanced at Little Spear and didn't speak further. Yi Xian smiled and said, Little Spear, why did your master place you in the study room? Little Spear sighed softly when it heard this. I don't know either. Yi Xian frowned slightly, do you know where she went? Little Spear said softly, I don't know. Yi Xian looked at Qinglian again, and she shook her head. I don't know either. Yi Xian fell silent. The pavilion master of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion isn't just an ordinary level of mystery. Meanwhile, Qinglian suddenly said, Young Master Yi, what happened before was my Immortal Treasure Pavilion's fault. We've already severely punished Yu Xian. Young Master Yi, please calm your anger. Yi Xian smiled and said, Miss Qinglian, I'm not angry. Qinglian blinked. Then Young Master Yi, please take back the Black Heaven token. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, there's no need for that, right? Qing Lian glanced resentfully at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, look, even my body is gone. Yi Xian was speechless. Qing Lian placed the Black Heaven token in Yi Xian's hand, and then she said, Young Master Yi, this is my immortal treasure pavilion's fault. Please be magnanimous and don't make a fuss about it. As she spoke, she glanced at the spear, and then she withdrew a spatial ring and placed it in Yi Xian's hand. It's just a small token of my appreciation. Young Master Yi, you must accept it. Yi Xian glanced at the spatial ring, and there were an entire 100,000 star god veins within it. Needless to say, it was a huge sum. Star god veins weren't star veins. Yi Xian put the spatial ring away without batting an eyelid, and then he said seriously, Miss Qing Lian, what are you talking about? I, Yi Xian, am not a petty person. Qing Lian grinned. Young Master Yi, I apologize on behalf of Immortal Treasure Pavilion once again. I can guarantee that something like that will never happen again in the future. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Qing Lian, may I ask where your headquarters are located? Qing Lian shook her head. I don't know. Yi Xian was stunned. Qing Lian smiled bitterly. I really don't know. Actually, we thought that the Immortal Treasure Pavilion in our ancient world was our headquarters, but we realized later that it wasn't. Yi Xian said in a low voice, even you don't know where your headquarters are? Qing Lian nodded. Only the pavilion master knows, and we haven't seen her for a long time. However, I heard some news before I came here. She seemed to have appeared in the ancient world of desolation. Yi Xian's brows furrowed slightly. Ancient world of desolation? Qing Lian nodded. A very dangerous place. It's said that there's the legendary boundless aura that can help people reach the boundless realm. Boundless aura. Yi Xian sized up Qing Lian, and then he said, Miss Qing Lian, you're half-step boundless? Qing Lian nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said, does your ancient world have boundless realm powerhouses? Qing Lian smiled and said, yes. I understand young Master Ye's meaning. It's not that one must have boundless aura to be able to reach the boundless realm. Cultivating normally, one can also reach the boundless realm. It's just that the difficulty will be much, much higher. As she said, she paused for a moment and continued, this is just like in the secular world. If there's someone behind you, wouldn't it be much faster to advance? If there's no one, you can only endure to the top, right? Yi Xian was speechless. Qing Lian continued, in this world, there are many outstanding people. However, resources are more important. Without cultivation resources, no matter how heaven-defying a person is, it's hard to advance an inch. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. If I have cultivation resources, I should be able to beat up the 3 swords. Xiao Ta was speechless. Qing Lian smiled faintly. Young Master Yi, I have to go back and report. What do you plan to do next? Plan? Yi Xian thought for a moment and then said, Miss just said that the Great Desolation ancient world is very dangerous? Qing Lian nodded. Yes. Speaking up to hear, she was slightly stunned. Then she said, Young Master Yi, could it be that you want to go to the Great Desolation ancient world? Yi Xian smiled and said, yes. Qing Lian said solemnly, with young master's current strength, if you go to that place, I'm afraid. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll go and have a try. Qing Lian hesitated for a moment and then said, then young Master Yi, be careful. After saying that, she cupped her fists and said, see you again. Yi Xian smiled and said, see you again. Qing Lian turned around and disappeared into the horizon. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, are you really going to this Great Desolation ancient world? Yi Xian nodded. Why, you don't want to go? Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment and then said, should we act tough here before we leave? Yi Xian said unhappily, look at you. Xiao Ta smiled and said, I'm too narrow-minded. Yi Xian suddenly said, we have to act tough for at least a year before we leave. Xiao Ta was speechless. Yi Xian laughed out loud. Then he disappeared into the horizon. 2 hours later, Yi Xian arrived at a mountain peak. On the mountain peak, there was an unknown academy. Yi Xian arrived at the academy gate. Just as he reached the gate suddenly opened and a girl appeared in front of Yi Xian. Seeing this girl, Yi Xian smiled and said, hello, I'm looking for Sister Nian. The girl blinked, you're Yi Xian, right? Yi Xian nodded, yes. The girl smiled and said, you're late. Yi Xian frowned slightly, what do you mean? The girl smiled and said, Sister Nian has already brought Miss An and the others to the Great Desolation Ancient World. Great Desolation Ancient World. Yi Xian said in a low voice, what are they doing there? The girl smiled and said, Sister Nian said that they need to reach the boundless realm. Hence, she brought them there. Great Desolation Ancient World. Yi Xian thought about it and then said, understood. With that, he turned around and left. At this moment, the girl suddenly said, hey, wait. Yi Xian turned around and looked at the girl, what's wrong? The girl blinked and grinned, Sister Nian said that you're quite thick-skinned. Is that true? Hearing this, Yi Xian's face darkened, do you think I'm thick-skinned? The girl sized up Yi Xian and then giggled, I don't know. But I think you're quite handsome. Yi Xian gave her a thumbs up, Miss, I have to say that you have good taste. Your future is limitless. The girl covered her mouth and giggled, you're really thick-skinned. Yi Xian laughed, turned around, and rode on his sword. In the air, he rode on his sword and spun a few times in a flashy manner before disappearing at the end of the horizon. Below, the girl looked at the streaks of sword light in the distance and praised, so handsome. In the endless starry sky, Yi Xian flew on his sword. This time, his target was the ancient world of desolation. Why the ancient world of desolation? Unlike before, this time, he wanted to take the initiative to look for danger. To challenge himself. To force himself. He wanted to challenge his own limits. After what happened before, he understood that he couldn't be the king of relying on others anymore. Unlike before, this time, he wasn't just thinking about it. He had completely come to a realization. The more useless he was now, the more helpless he would be in the future. If he didn't force himself, he would never know how outstanding he was. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, although we've both broken through, if we change places, I'm afraid we'll become little brothers again. Yi Xian laughed and then said, this time, I definitely won't rely on Qing. If I let Qing help me again, my surname isn't Yi. With that, he disappeared into the starry sky. Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, I feel like you're insulting my intelligence. Yi Xian. P.S. A new journey begins. Wait for me. I'll save the manuscript and give you a surprise. Chapter 2183. The Ancient World of Desolation. Two women were walking slowly amidst a certain mountain range. They were Mu Niannian and Enlancio. Mu Niannian suddenly raised her head and gazed at a lone mountain that towered into the clouds, and she grinned. We're almost there. Enlancio gazed at the lone mountain in the distance and spoke softly. Big Sister Nian, with your strength, there's no need for you to stay here at all. Right? The corners of Mu Niannian's mouth curled up slightly. I'll accompany you. Enlancio turned to look at Mu Niannian. Why? Mu Niannian smiled. I really like you, little girl. Enlancio fell silent. Mu Niannian patted Enlancio lightly on the shoulder and spoke softly. Your natural talent is much better than that little fellow, but do you know why you're unable to surpass him? Even if you do, he'll surpass you in no time. Enlancio shook her head. Mu Niannian blinked. Because he has a backer. Enlancio was speechless. Mu Niannian smiled and said, Does it hurt? And Lancio nodded. Mu Niannian smiled. Actually, there's another reason, and it's because your experiences are different from his. You've been pampered since a young age, whereas he's been miserable since a young age. Don't be fooled by his flashy ways and frivolous behavior. I've investigated him, and the bitterness he suffered when he was young isn't something an ordinary person can endure. It's precisely because of this reason that his will far exceeds an ordinary person's. She paused for a moment as she spoke, and then she continued. Unfortunately, Miss Tianming wasn't able to persevere and chose to show herself in the end, causing him to feel a sense of reliance. And Lancio nodded lightly. The Yi Xian of the past was really different from the current Yi Xian. He was still the same person, but the current Yi Xian was indeed a little flashy. In the past, Yi Xian was very serious. She still remembered the scene when she first met Yi Xian. At that time, Yi Xian was like a wolf, his body exuding a kind of bloodthirsty aura that wanted to choose people to devour, but he did not lose his tenderness, especially his feelings towards his younger sister, which made her a little envious. A man who was both cruel and tender. Mu Niannian continued, now, Lady Tianming and his father want to change him. And Lancio looked at Mu Niannian. Change him? Mu Niannian nodded. Let him rely on himself. And Lancio said in a low voice, Big Sister Nian, has something happened? Mu Niannian smiled and said, Miss Tianming went to the Milky Way to suppress a certain existence. When she spoke up to hear, she shook her head slightly. There's no need for us to worry so much. Because there are some things that even I feel slightly hopeless about. So, let those three fellows and that little fellow in the future worry about them. And Lancio looked at Mu Niannian. Will the future me be able to help? Mu Niannian fell silent for a moment before she said, You want to help? And Lancio nodded. Mu Niannian smiled. Then work hard. So long as you work hard, then there's hope. And Lancio turned to look at the lone mountain in the distance, and her gaze grew firmer. In the next moment, she sped up. Mu Niannian gazed at Lancio's lonely figure and sighed in his heart. Little fellow, don't let this little girl down in the future. She's silently sacrificed a lot for you. It didn't take long for Lancio to arrive at the foot of the lone mountain. Meanwhile, a figure appeared on the mountain. The figure carried a spear on her back, and she looked down at Lancio. My inheritance isn't passed down to a mediocre person. And Lancio raised her head and looked at the illusory figure. She opened her palm and a long spear appeared in her hand. She pointed the spear at the illusory figure and said, My master, Marshal Godin, is not here for the inheritance, but for a battle. She was here for a battle, not for an inheritance. On Lonely Mountain, the phantoms suddenly laughed out loud, interesting. Ha! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly leaped up and charged down with the spear in his hand. In an instant, an extremely terrifying aura swept down from the sky, and the heavens and the earth trembled because of it, and Lancio's eyes narrowed slightly. In the next moment, she suddenly shot into the sky. Yi Xian was flying on his sword somewhere in the starry sky. Yi Xian gazed towards the depths of the starry sky and spoke softly, Littlein, actually, he missed Lancio a little as well. And Lancio could be said to be the first woman he'd ever fallen in love with. The feeling he felt when he saw her for the first time was indescribable. But at that time, he had to take care of his younger sister, so he'd never thought about relationships. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, can I ask you a question? Yi Xian smiled, There's no need to be polite between us. Go ahead. Xiao Ta said, You have so many women. Which one do you like the most? Yi Xian said, What did you say before? Xiao Ta said, I can ask you a question. Yi Xian suddenly said, Fuck off. Xiao Ta was speechless. Yi Xian suddenly sped up, and he vanished into the depths of the starry sky in the blink of an eye. 3 days later, Yi Xian arrived at the ancient world of Great Desolation. As soon as he entered the ancient world of Great Desolation, a woman in a white dress stood in front of him. The woman in white was very beautiful and had a good figure. She was very pleasing to the eye. Of course, Yi Xian wasn't that kind of person. He only took a few glances before looking away. The woman in white smiled. "Young master, you looked at me a few times just now. Your eyes were mainly on my chest and waist. But your eyes are clear, without any evil intentions. I'm very surprised." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Of course, I, Yi Xian, am free from vulgar tastes. I look at everything with the eyes of art." The woman in white covered her mouth and laughed. "Young master, you're really interesting." As she spoke, she began to introduce herself. "Young master, my name is Sang Yu. I'm a small manager of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion." Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. There was a Celestial Treasure Pavilion here? Sang Yu smiled. "Judging from your expression, I presume you know about my Celestial Treasure Pavilion." Yi Xian smiled. "The Celestial Treasure Pavilion is spread throughout the universe. Who doesn't know about it?" Sang Yu smiled sweetly. "Young master, this is your first time here, right?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Sang Yu blinked and said, "Then does young master want to understand the ancient world of great desolation?" Yi Xian smiled. "How many god star veins?" Sang Yu smiled. "Young master, you're right. If it's a simple understanding, then you only need 5 god star veins. If you want to understand it in detail, then you need 20 god star veins. If you want to understand it in depth, then you need 50 god star veins. 50 god star veins. Yi Xian fell silent. Damn. This Celestial Treasure Pavilion really knows how to make money. If more people came today, then wouldn't the Celestial Treasure Pavilion make a killing? The pavilion master of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion is definitely a super rich woman. She might even be much richer than Sister Shui. Meanwhile, Sang Yu suddenly smiled and said, "Young master, do you need it?" Yi Xian grinned and was about to speak when a voice suddenly resounded from the side. "Sang Yu." Sang Yu's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she heard this. She turned around and saw a young man walking over slowly. The young man wore a loose white robe, had a handsome appearance, and held a folding fan in his hand. He was extremely handsome. The young man walked over to Sang Yu and grinned. "Sang Yu, you've come out to promote yourself again." Sang Yu spoke indifferently. "Young master Ah Gai, this is my job." Ah Gai sighed lightly. "I told you. I'll support you." Sang Yu smiled. "I like to rely on my own hard work to strive for the things I want." Ah Gai sighed once more. "Sang Yu, why bother?" Sang Yu gazed at Ah Gai. "Young master Ah Gai, I still have to work." As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed at Yi Xian and grinned. "Young master, do you need it?" Yi Xian glanced at the two of them and decided not to interfere in the business of others, so he was about to refuse and leave. Meanwhile, Ah Gai suddenly withdrew a spatial ring, and she gazed at Sang Yu. "Sang Yu, so long as you're willing to follow me, then the 500 star god veins within this spatial ring are yours." Sang Yu's face was expressionless. "Young master Ah Gai, I'm not that sort of person." Ah Gai withdrew another spatial ring. 1,000. Sang Yu stared at Ah Gai and was slightly angry. "Are you insulting me?" Ah Gai withdrew another spatial ring. 5,000. Sang Yu stared fixedly at Ah Gai. "Fuck off." Obviously, she was really angry. A trace of a cold glow flashed through Ah Gai's eyes. "Woman, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." A trace of a cold glow flashed through Sang Yu's eyes. "Young master Ah Gai, please respect me." A trace of disdain flashed in Ah Gai's eyes. "You're just a lowly little steward. It's your good fortune that this young master took a liking to you, but you've given this young master face time and again." "Have I given you face?" When she spoke up to this point, she seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. "Fuck off." Yi Xian blinked. "I've never seen someone so arrogant in my entire life." Ah Gai stared at Yi Xian. "Do you see it now?" Yi Xian nodded. Ah Gai stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "I'll give you one last chance." Disappear from this young master's sight in 3 breaths of time, otherwise, hiss. Meanwhile, a sword suddenly pierced through Ah Gai's throat, and a strand of blood sprayed out. Seeing this scene, Sang Yu's eyes widened in disbelief. Ah Gai's face was also full of disbelief, and her mind went blank. Yi Xian walked slowly to Ah Gai, and he looked at Ah Gai. The wind was too strong, I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again? Ah Gai stared fixedly at Yi Xian. My father is the vice president of this celestial treasure pavilion. If you dare to touch me, Yi Xian suddenly said, I'll let you go now, but don't come looking for trouble with me in the future, alright? Ah Gai immediately said angrily, you're dreaming. You. Yi Xian suddenly shook his head, go accompany Tian Yi. After speaking, he directly slashed out with his sword. Hiss. Ah Gai's head flew out, Tian Yi. Chapter 2184. Killed. Seeing that Yi Xian really killed Ah Gai, Sang Yu's face instantly changed. She didn't expect that this man's strength would be so terrifying, killing just like that. Sang Yu stared at Yi Xian, do you know what you've done? Yi Xian shook his head, I don't know. Sang Yu said angrily, do you know who he is? He's the son of the vice president of Celestial Treasure Pavilion, the only son. Do you know how serious the consequences are for killing him? Yi Xian blinked, and then revealed that terrified expression, the vice president's son. I don't know. I saw him bullying you, so I. Sang Yu was slightly stunned, and then said, you killed him because of me? Yi Xian hurriedly nodded, yes. Sang Yu stared at Yi Xian, why? Yi Xian hesitated, and then said a little shyly, you're born to be handsome. Xiao Ta. Sang Yu stared at Yi Xian, and after a moment, she took a deep breath, and then said, let's go quickly. Yi Xian glanced at Ah Gai's corpse, and then said, then what about you? Sang Yu fell silent, I should be fine. Yi Xian hurriedly said, why don't we go together? Sang Yu looked at Yi Xian, elope with you? Yi Xian was about to speak, but Sang Yu shook her head, if I go with you, you'll definitely die. If you go by yourself, there's still a chance of survival. Yi Xian smiled lightly, silly girl, if I go, you'll definitely die. Sang Yu looked at Yi Xian, and an inexplicable trace of goodwill arose in her heart. At this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Seeing this aura, Sang Yu's face instantly turned pale. She hurriedly walked up to Yi Xian and took out a talisman and handed it to Yi Xian. This is a transcendent grade teleportation talisman. You can use this talisman to teleport to the star field. Go quickly, Yi Xian asked, then what about you? Sang Yu said angrily, I'm from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, he won't do anything to me. If you don't leave, you're dead. Moreover, it will implicate your loved ones. Even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your loved ones. Yi Xian was silent. Think of Dad and Qing'er. He felt that he was thinking too much. It was better to think for himself. At this time, Sang Yu suddenly said angrily, still not leaving? Yi Xian was about to speak when an old man suddenly appeared here. Sang Yu's face paled when he saw the old man. The old man was the vice president of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion branch in this realm, Ananda. Ananda glanced at Ah Gai's corpse. After a moment of silence, he looked at Yi Xian. Do you know he's from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Ananda stared at Yi Xian. Since you knew, you still dared to kill him. I think your identity is not ordinary. Tell me who your backer is and let the old man know. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, if my backer is strong, you won't look for trouble with me, right? Ananda said, yes. Yi Xian nodded. Have you heard of the 3 swords? Ananda frowned. What's that? Never heard of it. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, have you heard of the Master of Time? Ananda narrowed his eyes. Of course. Yi Xian said seriously, we are sworn brothers. Ananda immediately flew into a rage. Brat, are you insulting the intelligence of the old man? Who is the master of time? He is the god of time who controls the world and is respected by all cultivators. Yet you say you are sworn brothers with him. Are you retarded? Hearing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Damn it. There's no justice in this world. Why is it that no one believes me when I tell the truth? After the battle with Dao Xianyi, he wanted to turn over a new leaf and be a new man. He no longer wanted to be flashy. But he found that it was impossible. Honest people don't have a good life in this world. Ananda stared at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I'm a rogue cultivator. Ananda said angrily, how dare a rogue cultivator kill someone from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion? Are you insulting the intelligence of the old man? Tell me, who are you? Yi Xian's face darkened. I'm your father, okay? Ananda was enraged. Are you insulting the old man? You. Yi Xian was also enraged. Old bastard, not only will I insult you, I will also beat you to death. After saying that, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, Ananda's expression changed drastically. He immediately threw a punch. Boom! With an explosion of white light, Ananda retreated tens of thousands of meters away. When he stopped, his physical body was shattered and only his soul was left. A sword instantly shattered his physical body. Ananda was stunned. Yi Xian was also stunned. He sized up Ananda and was a little confused. You are not in the boundless realm? Ananda looked at Yi Xian and was also a little confused. You are in the boundless realm? Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he realized that this old man was not even in the immortal realm. He was a supreme realm expert. Shouldn't there be boundless realm experts everywhere in this place? At this moment, Ananda said with a trembling voice, Young master, are you in the boundless realm? Yi Xian looked at Ananda and was about to make a move. Ananda suddenly knelt down with a thud. Senior, I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive me, Senior. Yi Xian looked at Ananda. I killed your son. Ananda hurriedly said, that's what he deserved. He offended you, Senior. He deserves it. Yi Xian was silent. Reason? At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was very complicated. All the reasons in the world were built on the foundation of powerful strength. With strength, the other party would take the initiative to reason with you. At this moment, Ananda said again, Senior, please be magnanimous, Chi. Before Ananda finished his words, a sword pierced through his forehead. The next moment, Ananda was absorbed by the green profound sword. Completely erased. At the side, Sangyu glanced at Yi Xian with a trace of fear in her eyes. Yi Xian looked at Sangyu and said with a smile, Do you think I'm cruel? Sangyu hesitated and said, Do you want to hear the truth or a lie? Yi Xian said with a smile, Let's hear the lie first. Sangyu said in a low voice, If one isn't ruthless, one can't stand firm. It's understandable for you to do this. If it were me, I would do the same. Yi Xian was slightly curious. What about the truth? Sangyu glanced at Yi Xian. Are you pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Yi Xian's expression froze. Sangyu hesitated and said, What you said to me earlier was all false. Or, it was just a random action on a whim, right? Yi Xian said with a smile, If I didn't make a move, what would you have done? Sangyu fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Sangyu, can you give me some information about the ancient world of desolation? Sangyu hurriedly passed a spatial ring to Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to take it when Sangyu hurriedly said, No, there's no need. Yi Xian said with a smile, That won't do. As a person, I still have my principles. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a spatial ring slowly floated over to Sangyu. Sangyu looked at the spatial ring but didn't take it. At this moment, she was still slightly afraid of Yi Xian. He killed me just like that. He didn't hesitate at all. It was too terrifying. Yi Xian smiled, and then he placed the spatial ring in Sangyu's hand. After that, he turned around and left. As if he'd thought of something, he said, "If anyone from the Celestial Treasure Pavilion comes looking for trouble with you, then ask them to come look for me. My name is Yi Xian." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already disappeared into the horizon. Sangyu looked at Yi Xian in the distance and said softly, "Swordsman." Yi Xian. At the end of the horizon, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, where are we going now?" Yi Xian stopped. He looked around with a serious look on his face. The ancient world of desolation. From the information given by Sangyu, he knew that the ancient world of desolation was a rather special world. There were no forces here. There were very few people in this place, but there were many ruins of the great desolation. To put it simply, this place used to be very glorious. However, for some unknown reason, the civilization of this place disappeared. Following that, the ancient forces of this place turned into ruins and mystic realms. Many ancient martial arts civilizations were buried in this place. Previously, Qing Lian said that this place was dangerous because some experts from the ancient ruins had awakened in this place. Moreover, there was a dangerous creature in this place, Spirit Demon. A special creature that looked like a demon but wasn't a demon. It lived by eating living things. Eating living things. Yi Xian suddenly thought of Arya. Arya seemed to like eating living things too. However, according to Xiao Ta, after Arya went to the Milky Way, she started to like eating food from the Milky Way. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't help but shake his head. If no one kept Arya in check, wouldn't she eat all over the universe? Moreover, if she didn't use the 3 swords, no one would be able to stop her. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked around. Then, he said, "This place is too big. It seems that to find Shaoan and Sister Nian, I'll have to ask the Celestial Treasure Pavilion for help." After saying that, he was about to look for the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. However, at this moment, he frowned and turned around. Not far in front of him stood a monster. The monster looked like a human, but it had a pair of wings and its eyes were deep purple. Spirit Demon. Yi Xian had already guessed the monster's identity. The spirit demon stared at Yi Xian with excitement in its eyes as if it had encountered some delicious food. However, it didn't attack, as if it was afraid. Yi Xian asked, "What's the matter?" Greed suddenly flashed in the spirit demon's eyes. Blood. In the next moment, it disappeared on the spot and punched at Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What the hell? Without any nonsense, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Chi! A wave of sword light tore through the air and the spirit demon was sent flying thousands of meters away. When it stopped, a sword suddenly pierced its forehead and nailed it to the ground. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly resounded from the distant mountain peak. "Human, if you dare hurt him, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and swept it, sending the spirit demon's head flying. Yi Xian looked at the distant horizon with a calm expression. "I don't have a good temper. Don't threaten me, otherwise I'll slaughter your spirit demon clan." Chapter 2185. Presumptuous. The voice in the distant sky suddenly roared, "How dare you talk about slaughtering my spirit demon race? Do you think you..." Yi Xian's palm suddenly opened, and the azure profound sword vanished on the spot. Pust. The voice in the distant sky stopped abruptly. At the same time, a bloody head slowly fell from the sky. A spirit demon's head. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword returned to its scabbard. Then, he turned around and left. Feud. Yi Xian's principle was that he would not offend those who did not offend him, but if someone offended him, he would definitely kill them. Unless, he couldn't beat them. Before Yi Xian took a few steps, footsteps suddenly came from behind him. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. He turned around and saw a middle-aged man standing not far away. The middle-aged man smiled. "Young Master Yi?" Yi Xian smiled. "Immortal Treasure Pavilion?" The middle-aged man nodded. "I'm Immortal Treasure Pavilion's leader, Li Sheng." Yi Xian asked, "What's the matter?" Li Sheng looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi is Immortal Treasure Pavilion's super VIP. Why did you kill 2 people from Immortal Treasure Pavilion?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "Are you here to denounce me?" Li Sheng smiled. "Young Master Yi, I'm only here to ask for an explanation." Yi Xian chuckled. "Then, does President Li Sheng know the ins and outs of this matter?" Li Sheng smiled. "Young Master Yi, a guy did offend young Master Yi, but it's not a crime worthy of death, right?" Yi Xian stared at Li Sheng. "He offended me, but why is it not a crime worthy of death? Do I need him to kill me for it to be a crime worthy of death?" The smile on Li Sheng's face gradually faded. "Young Master Yi, forgive me for saying too much, but aren't you being too ruthless with your actions? As the saying goes, leave a way out for everything." Yi Xian sneered. "He's not my son, so why should I leave a way out for him? Moreover, haven't you heard of the saying releasing a tiger back to the mountain?" Li Sheng looked at Yi Xian without a word. Yi Xian suddenly turned and left. At this moment, Li Sheng suddenly said in a deep voice, "Young Master Yi, I don't know why the Pavilion Master gave you the Profound Heaven token. I just want to give you a piece of advice. You can't be too complacent and you can't be too ruthless, otherwise." Yi Xian suddenly turned around and swung his sword. Li Sheng was forced back tens of thousands of feet. After Li Sheng stopped, his right arm was severed at the base, and blood splattered everywhere. Yi Xian looked at Li Sheng. "Are you teaching me how to do things?" Li Sheng looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. "You? Why are you so strong?" Li Sheng looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. "You? Why are you so strong?" Seeing Yi Xian walk over, Li Sheng's face changed. He quickly said, "Young Master Yi, I'm not here to denounce you. I'm here." Seeing Yi Xian's thumb on the hilt of his sword, Li Sheng was shocked. He quickly said, "Young Master Yi, I, the Vice President of Celestial Treasure Pavilion, offended young Master Yi. I'm here to apologize. Offer gifts and apologize." Yi Xian stopped. He looked at Li Sheng. "How do you want to compensate?" Li Sheng hesitated. He took out a storage ring and placed it in front of Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, please accept it." Yi Xian glanced at the storage ring. There were 30,000 star god veins in the storage ring. Seeing this, Yi Xian could not help but frown. He looked at Li Sheng and said, "President Li Sheng, as far as I know, I have the Profound Heaven token and have the authority to use all the divine items in the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, right?" Hearing this, Li Sheng's expression changed. "Young Master Yi, you..." Yi Xian looked at Li Sheng. "From now on, Celestial Treasure Pavilion is under my control." Li Sheng flew into a rage. "Young Master Yi, how could you do this, you..." Before he finished speaking, a sword suddenly pierced through his forehead. Chi! Li Sheng was rooted to the spot. Li Sheng glared at Yi Xian and said angrily, "Young Master Yi, what's the difference between your actions and a bandit's?" Yi Xian took out the Profound Heaven token. "Let me ask you, this token was given to me by your Pavilion Master. Holding this token is equivalent to meeting the Pavilion Master, right?" Li Sheng was dumbfounded. "Young Master Yi, what nonsense are you talking about? This token is a VIP token. When did it become equivalent to meeting the Pavilion Master? Are you making things up out of nothing?" Yi Xian frowned. "No." With that, the azure profound sword trembled slightly and began to absorb Li Sheng's soul. Li Sheng's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly said, I remember now. There is. Young Master Yi, there is. Yi Xian blinked, there really is? Li Xing nodded, sweating profusely, there is. There really is. Yi Xian nodded slightly, opened his palm, and the azure profound sword returned to his hand. He glanced at Li Sheng, to the celestial treasure pavilion. Li Sheng was a little hesitant. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and a hint of killing intent flashed in them. Seeing this, Li Sheng's expression changed drastically, and hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, this way please. At this moment, he could not help but want to slap himself. He was also stupid. Why did he come looking for this young Master Yi? He was courting death. A moment later, Yi Xian and Li Xing left. Not long after the two left, a spirit demon appeared. The spirit demon looked at the departing Yi Xian and Li Sheng with excitement in his eyes. What a special bloodline. With that, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon. The celestial treasure pavilion was located in a valley. Compared to the celestial treasure pavilion he saw before, this one was slightly simpler. However, there was also a 9th floor here. Li Xing said, Young Master Yi, you can stay on the 8th floor. Yi Xian looked directly at the 9th floor. That's where the pavilion master lives, right? Li Xing nodded, yes. No one is allowed to enter. Yi Xian nodded slightly, then walked directly to the 9th floor. Li Xing's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, the pavilion master has ordered that no one is allowed to enter, not even you. You, Yi Xian turned his head to look at Li Sheng. Do you know my relationship with the pavilion master? Li Sheng was stunned. Relationship? What relationship? Yi Xian suddenly glared at Li Sheng. Don't let your imagination run wild. I don't have that kind of relationship with the pavilion master. With that, he turned around and walked to the 9th floor. Li Sheng was dumbfounded. F***ck, did I let my imagination run wild? That kind of relationship. Li Xing suddenly felt his scalp go numb. Why did the pavilion master give this young man the Black Heaven token? Could it be, thinking of this, Li Xing's body suddenly trembled, and he did not dare to continue thinking. At this time, Yi Xian had entered the 9th floor. Inside the 9th floor, it was still as simple as before. There was only a bookshelf and a desk. The desk was by the side, and one could see the vast mountain range in the distance. Yi Xian walked to the bookshelf. The bookshelf was filled with books, but the words were words he had never seen before. Yi Xian glanced at the books, then said, Xiao Ta, do you understand them? Xiao Ta said, I don't. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Haven't you been to the Milky Way galaxy? Xiao Ta said, I went there to show off, not to learn. Yi Xian's face immediately darkened. F***ck, he thought of a phrase, ignorant and incompetent. Yi Xian shook his head, then put away all the books. Xiao Ta suddenly said, Young master, you don't understand them, why did you put them away? Yi Xian laughed mischievously, it doesn't matter if I don't understand them, maybe my son will be able to understand them in the future. As a father, prepare some treasures for him first. Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, you don't have a son. Yi Xian did not care about this broken tower. He walked to the desk. On the desk, there was an ancient book. He could understand the words in this ancient book. In the ancient book, there were 4 big words, Law of Conservation. Law of Conservation? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He flipped to a page, and a line of words entered his eyes. Law of Conservation, the law that everything in the universe has a constant value. Simply put, no matter what it is, its quantity, no matter what happens, will not change. Even if the universe collapses, its ultimate quantity still exists. Cultivating with this law, life will never die, martial arts skills will never be destroyed. Yi Xian was silent for a long time. He flipped to the next page. This state of immortality. There are too many loopholes. If you don't understand the law of eternity, how can you be truly immortal? This strange world, the realms are messy. there are too many loopholes. There is no complete and detailed system of cultivation realms. Forget it, since I'm here, let me organize a complete system of cultivation realms. From today onwards, let me create a new era. What era should I call it? Yi Xian quickly flipped to another page, era of acting cool. Seeing these 4 words, Yi Xian's expression froze. He quickly looked back. Not good, not good. It's too vulgar. Yi Xian continued to flip, but the back was blank. Nothing? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He flipped a few more pages. All were blank, obviously. The other party did not continue writing. Yi Xian looked at the ancient book in front of him, his heart secretly pondering. It was not that the other party did not write on purpose, because after the last sentence, he saw a stroke. Obviously, the other party suddenly had something to do and left. Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then softly said, "This pavilion master is really not simple." He did not understand what the law of eternity was, but from what the pavilion master wrote, it seemed to be very awesome. Also, Qing said that the pavilion master's knowledge was above Sister Nian's. Was the Milky Way so awesome? At this time, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "I understand." Yi Xian was a little curious. Understand what? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, "Understand why there are so many realms here, and it's messy." Yi Xian was stunned, then said, "What do you mean?" Xiao Ta said, "Young master, do you know, in Master's era, the cultivation realm system was actually very complete. Do you know why it was complete?" Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Xiao Ta said, "Because the realm system of that era was created by the first complete sister Tianming, so the realm system of that era was complete, and that era was called the Tianming era. One person suppressed the 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional, dominating the ages. But in our era, Sister Tianming definitely would not waste time on this, so our realm system of our era is so messy." Yi Xian was silent for a long time, then said, "I understand." As he said that, he looked at the ancient book, then said, "This pavilion master is creating a new era. Yes, I will help her. When the time comes, let her leave me a name." "What should I leave? Emperor Yi? Mystic Emperor? Sword Emperor?" Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Act tough Emperor." Yi Xian. Asking for votes. 1. Chapter 2186. Hearing Xiao Ta's words, Yi Xian's face darkened. Act tough Emperor? How vulgar. Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, you said you wanted to help him. How are you going to help him? I don't think you know anything." Yi Xian said seriously, "I'm not telling you." With that, he put away the unfinished ancient book. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian looked around and said softly, "This pavilion master is indeed not an ordinary person. This tycoon. Oh, no, this friend, I'm definitely going to befriend him." Xiao Ta, Yi Xian left the room. Li Sheng looked at the empty study and fell silent. "Damn it. I found a bandit." Yi Xian said, "Where is the Celestial Treasure Pavilion's treasury?" Hearing that, Li Sheng's face changed. "Young Master Yi, you can't do that. Those are the Celestial Treasure Pavilion's assets. In theory, only the Pavilion Master can use them. You." Yi Xian took out the Shantian token. "Seeing this token is like seeing the Pavilion Master. In theory, I am the Pavilion Master now. Is there a problem?" Li Sheng, Yi Xian's face was expressionless. "Take me there." His voice turned cold. Li Sheng's heart shook. He didn't dare to offend Yi Xian, so he hurriedly brought Yi Xian to the Celestial Treasure Pavilion's treasury. Actually, outsiders wouldn't dare to bully the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Because the Pavilion Master was really awesome. When the Pavilion Master came to this world, he had already shocked some of the super experts in this world. Therefore, even some of the big shots of the ancient forbidden areas wouldn't go against the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. On the contrary, they would give the Celestial Treasure Pavilion some face. But Yi Xian was different. This guy was not an outsider. He had the Shantian token that the pavilion master had given him. Li Sheng sighed in his heart and felt helpless. Why would the pavilion master give the Shantian token to a bandit? After all, he had given the Shantian token to the pavilion master before, but the Shantian token hadn't chosen the bandit. Sigh. Li Sheng sighed in his heart. He had really found a bandit. Not long after, Li Sheng brought Yi Xian to the treasury of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. It was actually just a small room, but inside the room, there were hundreds of storage rings. Hundreds of them. Yi Xian blinked and didn't waste any time. He waved his right hand and collected all the storage rings. Li Sheng's face instantly turned pale. Young Master Yi. This is the pavilion master's, Yi Xian said seriously. She and I are inseparable. Li Sheng, Yi Xian lightly patted Li Sheng on the shoulder and said, do your best. With that, he turned around and left. In the same place, Li Sheng was silent. After a long time, he quickly left. Not long after, he arrived at a secret compartment. He took out a talisman and crushed it, then sent a voice transmission. Pavilion Master, this youth is a bandit, a bandit. Yi Xian returned to the 8th floor. Then, he returned to Xiao Ta. He took out all the storage rings and scanned them with his divine sense. With this scan, his whole body directly trembled. In the storage rings, there were more than 1 billion star god veins. More than 1 billion. Yi Xian felt his head buzzing. Were star god veins cabbages? Needless to say, Yi Xian was really shocked. Was this celestial treasure pavilion so rich? Other than star god veins, there were countless heavenly treasures and divine objects in the storage rings. There were countless of them. I've profited. At this moment, Yi Xian's face suddenly changed. In the next moment, the storage rings in Xiao Ta's body directly turned into streams of light and rushed out of Xiao Ta. Then, they tore through space and flew in a certain direction. Yi Xian was shocked and hurriedly tried to suppress them. However, he was shocked to find that those storage rings directly ignored his suppression and in the blink of an eye, disappeared into the end of space and time. Yi Xian was numb. The duck that was in his mouth flew away. It must be that pavilion master who made a move. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. So stingy. At this moment, Li Sheng suddenly appeared at the door. Yi Xian looked at Li Sheng, and Li Sheng smiled slightly. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian's face was expressionless. You actually scolded me. After saying that, he directly turned into a stream of sword light and charged at Li Sheng. Li Sheng. Soon, Li Sheng's shrill scream sounded in the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. Although the current Yi Xian was only at the Supremacy Realm, his strength was not the slightest bit weaker than a boundless realm. Moreover, the green profound sword in his hand could help him raise his cultivation realm. Not only that, there was also the power of time. However, he would not use it under normal circumstances. Because he did not want to let himself overly rely on external objects. His current principle was that if the enemy did not call him ancestor, he would not draw the green profound sword. I cannot use external objects, but I must have them. After a long time, Yi Xian walked out of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, and he was slightly displeased as he looked towards the distant horizon. A few hundred spatial rings, over 1 billion star divine veins, and countless treasures of heaven and earth were gone just like that. Gone. Meanwhile, an old man suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side, and the old man bowed slightly. Young Master Yi, we've found out the whereabouts of Miss and that you wanted us to investigate. Yi Xian asked. Where? The old man withdrew a map and passed it to Yi Xian. The northern wilderness. Yi Xian nodded and put the map away. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly said, Young Master Yi, that place is very dangerous. Yi Xian said, From now on, that place is even more dangerous. The old man was slightly stunned, and then he said, What do you mean? Yi Xian glanced at the old man and said, "Because I'm going." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly rode his sword and vanished into the horizon. On the spot, the old man remained silent for a long time before he said, "Amazing." On the 7th level of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, Li Sheng remained silent as he watched Yi Xian vanish into the horizon. He'd just been beaten up by Yi Xian. However, he wasn't angry, because he noticed that Yi Xian's strength was much more terrifying than he'd imagined. A thought suddenly arose in Li Sheng's mind. Could there really be something going on between the pavilion master and this young Master Yi? Li Sheng couldn't help but shiver when he thought up to this point. The northern wilderness was located at the north of the ancient world of desolation. When Yi Xian arrived at the northern wilderness, he frowned. A shapeless pressure. Yi Xian looked into the distance, and he saw a lone mountain at the end of his vision. Shaoan had appeared there before. Yi Xian suddenly rode his sword and vanished on the spot. But a moment later, he frowned because he noticed that the pressure he felt was more than 10 times stronger when he rode his sword. Can't fly? Yi Xian didn't force it. He landed on the ground and walked. After a while, Yi Xian arrived at the foot of the lone mountain. He raised his head and looked up. At this moment, a phantom appeared on the lone mountain. The phantom carried a long spear on his back and stood there like the ruler of this world, giving off an extremely terrifying pressure. So strong. This was the first thought that came to Yi Xian's mind. The phantom looked down at Yi Xian. "Are you here for the inheritance?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Junior came here to look for someone. She seemed to have appeared here before." The phantom looked at Yi Xian. "Are they 2 women?" Yi Xian nodded quickly. "Senior, do you know where they are now?" The phantom said, "They just left not long ago." "Left?" Yi Xian asked again. "Where did they go?" The phantom pointed to the north. Yi Xian cupped his fists. "Thank you." With that, he was about to chase after them. But at this time, the phantom suddenly said, "Young man, are you interested in inheriting my Dao?" Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, "Senior, I came here to look for someone." The phantom suddenly pointed to a dried corpse below. "Do you know, this person knelt here to beg for my inheritance. Even in death, he couldn't get what he wanted. But now, as long as you nod, I will teach you the supreme Tao of the spear." Yi Xian smiled. "I am a swordsman." The phantom said in a deep voice, "There is no conflict. You can also dual cultivate spear and sword." Yi Xian was speechless. The phantom sighed in a low voice. "Young man, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, you have to grasp it." Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, "Senior, this friend I am looking for is a spear user. She was here just now, why didn't Senior give her the inheritance?" The phantom sighed again. "She doesn't need it." Yi Xian, the phantom looked at Yi Xian. "Young man, I am really powerful, won't you consider it?" Yi Xian was a little curious. "Senior, why did you choose me?" The phantom said in a deep voice, "Although your realm is low, your aura is very strong, especially your physical body, it has surpassed your realm. Your foundation is too good. Almost perfect." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Senior, are you still alive or," the phantom said in a low voice, "dead?" Yi Xian was slightly surprised, and then said, "Senior's strength is so strong." The phantom shook his head. "Young man, you should be from the outside and don't know the history of this world. Do you know what happened in the great wilderness?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I really don't know, I only know that something happened in this world, and then this world's civilization disappeared." The phantom sighed, and didn't say anything. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, was there a war in this world before?" The phantom nodded. "A great war, an unprecedented great war. That time, everyone in the great wilderness put down all grudges and joined hands to fight against the enemy. That time, countless geniuses fell. I was one of them." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Is Senior at the Boundless Realm?" The phantom nodded. "Peak Boundless Realm." Peak Boundless Realm died in battle. Yi Xian was silent. At this time, the phantom said again, at that time, how many boundless realm powerhouses died in the great wilderness? 99%. Not only boundless realm powerhouses, but also many powerhouses above the boundless realm died. In that battle, more than 90% of the people in the great wilderness died, and they haven't recovered to this day. Yi Xian was a little curious. Senior, who were your opponents? The phantom's voice became a little solemn. Spirit demon race. Spirit demon race. Hearing that, Yi Xian frowned. Just now, that spirit vein even wanted to eat him. The phantom was about to speak, but at this time, he seemed to sense something, and suddenly turned his head, frowning slightly. Young man, your friend is in danger. 3 sky demons are attacking her together. At this point, he seemed to have discovered something, and his pupils suddenly constricted. How is that possible? Little guy, go quickly, or else she'll be in danger. Hearing that, Yi Xian's eyes immediately turned cold. If Shaoan loses a hair, I'll slaughter the entire spirit demon race. As his voice fell, he directly disappeared at the end of the horizon. Chapter 2187. In a mountain range. Enlancio stood with her spear in hand. Not far from her stood 3 spirit demons. 3 boundless realms. In the spirit demon clan, sky fiends were considered a very high-level existence. Enlancio's expression was calm, and there wasn't a trace of fear in her eyes. At this moment, the heavenly demon in the lead suddenly said greedily, "This woman is really not bad. If we can eat her, it will be a great tonic." Beside him, the other heavenly demon's eyes flickered with a strange light. "Go Mang, don't you think that this woman is very good-looking?" The heavenly demon named Go Mang laughed. "Ling Yu, I know you like this. Don't worry, I won't kill her. After I cripple her, I'll let you enjoy her first." Ling Yu smirked. "Thank you." Go Mang roared with laughter. In the next moment, he suddenly vanished on the spot. In an instant, a black ray of light appeared directly in front of Enlancio, and its formidable force instantly caused the space where Enlancio resided to become illusory. Enlancio was expressionless as he directly stabbed out with his spear. Simple and direct. Boom! The black light shattered, and Go Mang instantly retreated thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, a long spear suddenly pierced through the air. Go Mang's expression instantly changed. He waved his right hand, and a huge black energy shield appeared in front of him. Bang! The spear arrived, and the shield was instantly shattered. In the next moment, Go Mang retreated explosively once more, and he'd just retreated when another spear stabbed towards him. Chi! The sharp sound was deafening. A wisp of a vicious expression flashed in Go Mang's eyes. He folded his hands together before pressing them forward, and then a formidable black light surged out explosively from within him like a tide. In an instant, the mountain range in the surroundings started seething, and then it shattered and was obliterated. Boom! When the spear arrived, the black light instantly shattered. Go Mang's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He was just about to flee when a spear pierced through his heart. Chi! Fresh blood gushed out from the tip of the spear. Go Mang looked at Enlancio in disbelief. "You," he hadn't finished speaking when Enlancio suddenly flew up and kicked Go Mang's throat. Bang! Go Mang's head was directly shattered, his soul destroyed. Enlancio pulled out her spear and turned to look at the dumbfounded Ling Yu with a calm expression. Meanwhile, Enlancio suddenly vanished on the spot. It was as fast as lightning. In the distance, Ling Yu's expression turned grim, and he turned around and fled. When he saw Go Mang die so easily at Enlancio's hands, he'd lost all desire to fight. Run! This woman was too terrifying. I've got the wrong person. However, just as he fled, a long spear directly arrived behind him. Ling Yu was horrified in his heart. He hurriedly turned around and suddenly smashed his fist down. This punch caused the expanse of space in front of him to sink down. At the same time, a strand of formidable force instantly enveloped the spear in Enlanchio's hand. Boundless power. However, the spear in Enlanchio's hand easily shattered the boundless force that Ling Yu released, and in the next moment, the spear pierced straight into Ling Yu's stomach. Chi! Ling Yu's body stiffened. She looked at Enlanchio with eyes filled with disbelief. How is this possible? How could you ignore my immeasurable power? Enlanchio had a calm expression. I'm strong. With that, she swung her gun. Chi! Ling Yu's soul was obliterated. Enlanchio turned around and looked towards the distance. There was a black shadow in the distant horizon, and it was the last heavenly devil that had fled just now. She was just about to attack when she seemed to have sensed something, causing her pupils to constrict abruptly. She swiftly turned around, and as soon as she did, a shadow had appeared in front of her like a ghost. In the next moment, a hand grabbed at Enlanchio's throat. Enlanchio swiftly raised her spear to block it. Bang! Enlanchio's figure was instantly blasted flying into an unknown spatial abyss. This unknown spatial abyss was pitch black and deep, and it emanated an extremely terrifying devouring energy. After she entered this place, Enlanchio's brows knit together slightly because she noticed that the devouring energy was ceaselessly devouring her body and soul. Enlanchio was about to leave when the shadow from before appeared in front of her once more. Enlanchio's pupils constricted abruptly, and she suddenly stabbed forcefully. This spear strike was like a bolt of lightning that carried monstrous might. However, this terrifying spear strike was directly clamped between two fingers. 2 fingers. Enlanchio's pupils constricted abruptly while a wisp of a savage expression flashed through her eyes, and then she suddenly spun the spear in her hand. Bang! In an instant, the shadow was blasted 3 kilometers back. A trace of surprise flashed through the shadow's eyes. You're merely at the eternal realm, yet you actually possess such strength. Enlanchio stood there with the spear in her right hand, and she stared fixedly at the shadow. In the next moment, she suddenly charged forward and tossed the spear in her hand forward. Hiss! This throw caused the mysterious and unknown spatial abyss to be torn into a strange shape by the might of the spear. In the distance, the shadow suddenly raised his right hand slowly, and then a fine black vortex suddenly appeared at the center of his palm. Reflection. Bang! The black vortex instantly swelled up and was about to explode. However, in the next moment, the shadow suddenly pressed forward, and the black vortex was instantly suppressed. Meanwhile, Enlanchio suddenly appeared behind the spear, and in the next moment, she suddenly kicked the spear's handle. Bang! The black vortex exploded apart. In the next moment, the figure retreated explosively by almost 3 kilometers. Meanwhile, Enlanchio suddenly charged forward and stabbed her spear at the figure, and the formidable force of the spear instantly caused the mysterious spatial abyss to start burning. Her strength was too formidable. The shadow suddenly vanished on the spot, and then he smashed his fist towards Enlanchio. Bang! The spear shook violently while Enlanchio's brows knit together slightly. In the next moment, she'd already appeared over 10 kilometers away. She'd just stopped moving when a fist suddenly appeared in front of her, and then the spatial abyss in the surroundings was instantly obliterated. The spatial abyss was unable to endure the terrifying force of this punch. Enlanchio slowly closed her eyes while the spear in her hand trembled violently. In the next moment, her figure suddenly leaped up and smashed her spear down. Rumble. A world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded. In the next moment, Enlanchio and the shadow retreated madly. Everything in the surroundings was obliterated. Their strength was truly too formidable. Right at this moment, Enlanchio suddenly slapped her right hand behind her. Bang! This slap caused the boundless space behind her to be obliterated. However, she'd stopped moving, and the shadow had suddenly stomped its right foot on the ground. Bang! The shadow stopped right after that. However, the expanse of space where her foot stomped was directly obliterated. The shadow raised his head to look at Enlanchio who stood in the distance. You really surprised me. In the distance, Enlancio had an expressionless face as she suddenly charged forward. This charge was like a bolt of lightning that shot forward, and a spear instantly stabbed towards the phantom. The phantom's eyes narrowed, and his body suddenly became illusory. In the next moment, countless afterimages suddenly appeared in the surroundings, and these afterimages punched out simultaneously. In an instant, over 10,000 fist seals blasted towards Enlancio. Enlancio hurriedly withdrew her spear when she witnessed this scene, and then she swiftly swept it. With this sweep, a ray of light surged forward, and then the entire heavens and the earth started to shatter into pieces. Hiss! The countless afterimages in the surroundings were obliterated. However, Enlancio was blasted back repeatedly, and she only stopped after retreating almost 30 kilometers. As soon as she did, a wisp of blood suffused the corner of her mouth. However, the battle intent in her eyes grew denser. In the distance, the shadow's expression was slightly unsightly. He was 2 realms higher than the woman who stood before him, yet she'd actually been able to fight him until now. Moreover, her strength was growing stronger and stronger. How monstrous. I can't allow her to live. He was a member of the spirit demon race, and his main mission was to kill all the extraordinary geniuses and monstrous geniuses that had appeared in the recent years. Because all of these geniuses and monstrous geniuses might become enemies of the spirit demon race. Just in case. The shadow suddenly raised his head to look towards the distant horizon. In the next moment, he suddenly charged forward while a terrifying force swept through the surroundings. Enlancio frowned slightly. She suddenly stabbed the spear in her right hand forward, and a speck of cold light appeared at the tip of her spear. Bang! As soon as their strengths collided, the heavens and the earth collapsed, and space was obliterated. Rumble. An expanse of spear light suddenly shattered. In the next moment, Enlancio retreated repeatedly. However, the shadow in front of her had instantly retreated 3 kilometers away as well. Moreover, when he stopped moving, his right arm had split open and blood sprayed. The shadow's expression was extremely unsightly. I'm 2 realms higher than him, yet I'm unable to do anything to him? When did such a terrifying genius appear in the grand wilderness? If he were to mature, the shadow didn't dare think about it. Right at this moment, the distant Enlancio suddenly took a step forward, and she'd already arrived in front of the silhouette in a single step. The silhouette's reaction was swift as well. He charged forward and punched towards Enlancio. Bang! Both of them retreated explosively once more. But right at this moment, an unexpected event occurred. A shadow suddenly appeared behind Enlancio, and in the next moment, a dagger swept towards the back of Enlancio's neck. Enlancio's pupils constricted abruptly, and she swiftly turned around and blocked with her spear. Hiss! A fiery red light suddenly sputtered out from the spear in Enlancio's hand. In the next moment, the shadow strangely vanished. Immediately after, a strange blood-red grand array suddenly appeared in the surroundings of Enlancio's head, and then 4 pure gold ropes directly locked Enlancio in place. Right at this moment, the shadow from before appeared in front of Enlancio once more. It was a woman, and she held a dagger in her hand. The woman gazed at Enlancio while a wisp of a savage smile arose on the corners of her mouth. Woman of the grand wilderness, you're very good at fighting, right? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly stabbed her dagger into Enlancio's stomach. Hiss! A strand of fresh blood sprayed from Enlancio's stomach. As she spoke, she intended to attack again. But right at this moment, a blood-red ray of light shot over violently from the horizon. It was exactly Yi Xian who'd rushed over. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, and she was about to attack when the shadow suddenly said, "Lan, don't attack. We've been here for too long, and we've alarmed some experts of the grand wilderness. Return to the clan." Lan pondered deeply for a moment, and then she opened her palm. In an instant, 3 strands of light enveloped her, the shadow, and Enlancio. In the next moment, their figures instantly became illusory. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had appeared here, and his eyes were blood-red like an ocean of blood. Long gazed at Yi Xian, who stood nearby and ridiculed. "If you have the balls, then come to the spirit demon dimension and save them." As soon as she finished speaking, the three of them vanished completely. Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously, "Li Sheng!" As soon as his voice resounded, Li Sheng appeared in front of Yi Xian. Li Sheng was shocked when he saw Yi Xian, who seemed like he was covered in blood. "What's going on?" Yi Xian stared at Li Sheng, and his voice didn't carry a trace of emotion. "How do we get to the spirit demon dimension?" Li Sheng hesitated for a moment and said, "Young Master Yi, why are you asking this? The spirit demon dimension isn't simple. That place." Hiss. A sword suddenly pierced through the center of Li Sheng's forehead. Yi Xian suddenly grabbed Li Sheng's throat with his right hand, and then he slowly lifted Li Sheng up. His voice was ferocious like the roar of a wild beast. "I'm asking you how to get there. I'm not asking you anything else, understand?" Bang! In an instant, an ocean of blood surged in an area of 500,000 kilometers. Countless experts that were in deep slumber were jolted awake. Chapter 2188. Madness. At this moment, Yi Xian was on the verge of going completely mad. However, he still forcefully suppressed his bloodline and allowed himself to retain a trace of clarity. Shaoan. She was the first woman that Yi Xian liked, and he had always felt that he owed her. He owed her a lot. His heart was bleeding when he saw the spirit demon woman stab the saber into Shaoan's abdomen. At that moment, he panicked. He really panicked. The days that he spent with Shaoan were very few, so few that he seemed to have neglected her existence most of the time. But just a moment ago, he was terrified. He had never been so terrified. If Shaoan were to die, he had never panicked like this even when he was in a hopeless situation. It was fear that came from the depths of his heart. It was like this most of the time. Some people usually seem to have no sense of existence, and you wouldn't cherish them. But when they suddenly left one day, you would realize how painful your heart was. How many people missed that moment, and they missed their entire lives. Li Sheng was terrified to the extreme in front of Yi Xian, and he didn't dare say anything else. He hurriedly took out a teleportation scroll and passed it to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, this can teleport you to the spirit demon world." Yi Xian suddenly pulled out the sword that was stuck in between Li Sheng's brows, and then he crushed the teleportation scroll. Bang! A teleportation formation appeared beneath Yi Xian's feet. In the next moment, Yi Xian's body started to turn illusory. Li Sheng hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "Young Master Yi, I know you're angry, but I still have to remind you that the spirit demon world isn't a simple place. Even the pavilion master didn't allow us to step foot into that world all those years ago. Once you go, I'm afraid you won't be able to return. You." Meanwhile, Yi Xian had completely vanished. Li Sheng fell silent. Yi Xian has gone mad. I'm afraid I won't be able to see this young Master Yi again. At this moment, Li Sheng suddenly turned his head, and he frowned slightly. So many powerful auras. Are those experts that have been sleeping for countless years about to awaken? Spirit Demon Realm. An hour later, Yi Xian opened his eyes. At this moment, he was already on a piece of land. The sky was dark red, and the surroundings emitted an extremely uncomfortable pressure. Yi Xian scanned his surroundings, and in the next moment, he disappeared on the spot. He already sensed Enlunchio's aura. At this moment, an expert from the spirit demon race suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He stared at Yi Xian and was about to speak when a sword pierced his throat. Qi! A jet of fresh blood spurted out. Yi Xian appeared in front of the spirit demon race expert, pulled out his sword, and vanished on the spot. Qi! The spirit demon powerhouse's head slowly fell to the ground, blood splattering everywhere. Not long after, another spirit demon expert appeared in front of Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian with narrowed eyes, and just as he was about to speak, the azure profound sword suddenly pierced through his head. Chi! The spirit demon expert's eyes were wide open, and they were filled with disbelief. What? Before he could finish speaking, his head shot into the sky. Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of the spirit demon expert, and then he suddenly pulled out his sword. In the next moment, he charged forward and vanished into the horizon. At the same time, countless bloody heads flew into the sky and the surroundings. He killed as he went. Just like that, Yi Xian madly pursued Enlanxio's aura in the distance, and he killed anyone he saw along the way. Yi Xian's arrival alarmed the entire spirit demon race. A terrifying aura suddenly crushed down from the distant horizon. Below, Yi Xian raised his head, and a sea of blood surged in his eyes. In the next moment, he suddenly vanished on the spot, and the azure profound sword in his hand transformed into a ray of blood-red light that shot into the sky. How dare you! A furious shout suddenly resounded in the sky. Who are you? How dare you offend my spirit demon race? In the next moment, a shrill cry resounded in the sky, and then a bloody head fell slowly from the sky. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword returned to his grasp. After that, he vanished into the distance. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to arrive before an ancient city, and he saw many spirit demon experts there. However, he didn't see Enlanxio or the two spirit demon experts from before. A middle-aged spirit demon gazed coldly at Yi Xian. Who are you? How dare you offend my spirit demon race? Yi Xian didn't answer him, and he suddenly flew up into the sky on his sword. In the sky above the city, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A ray of blood-red sword energy slashed down from the sky, and in an instant, an enormous hole was torn open in the world. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly roared furiously, "Formation!" As soon as he spoke, a ray of black light shot into the sky from within the city, and then it transformed into an enormous barrier of light that enveloped the entire city. Meanwhile, the ray of blood-red sword energy slashed down. Bang! The enormous barrier of light shattered, and the sword energy slashed into the city. Hiss! The entire city was slashed into two by Yi Xian's attack, and the sword energy sunk deep into the ground. In an instant, the aura of countless souls shot into the sky from within the city. Those were the souls of the dead. At least 100,000 spirit demon experts were annihilated by this attack. The middle-aged spirit demon and the other experts on the city walls were stunned. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly flew up into the sky on his sword. In the next moment, the middle-aged spirit demon's pupils constricted, and then a sword instantly shot through the space between his brows. In the blink of an eye, the heads of all the spirit demon experts on the city walls flew into the air while Yi Xian had charged into the city. Everywhere the sword energy passed, heads flew into the air. Boundless sword energy and killing intent swept through the entire city, and countless spirit demon experts were instantly torn into pieces by the sword energy. In less than 10 breaths of time, the entire city directly became a purgatory. Outside the city gates, Yi Xian slowly walked towards the distance. Behind him, there was already not a single living thing left. For one person, slaughtering an entire city. Although the current Yi Xian did not go completely mad, he was already on the verge of going completely mad. Yi Xian gripped the azure profound sword in his hand and slowly walked towards the distance. Each step left a blood-colored footprint. The matter of Yi Xian slaughtering an entire city spread throughout the entire spirit demon world rapidly. And at this moment, the entire spirit demon world was shaken. Someone slaughtered into the spirit demon world. In an instant, countless powerful auras rose to the sky from the spirit demon world's main city, the demon city, and then shot towards the horizon. Yi Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of him, there stood a spirit demon old man. A super powerhouse above boundless realm. After Yi Xian slaughtered that city, the spirit demon race's upper echelons understood that boundless realm powerhouses were not this youth's match at all. Hence, in order to not make unnecessary sacrifices, they directly send out a powerhouse above boundless realm. The old man stared at Yi Xian and was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished from where he was. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. Insolence. When his voice faded, he suddenly charged forward and threw a punch at Yi Xian. This punch was unleashed. Countless mysterious runes suddenly emerged in the surroundings. In an instant, the surrounding heaven and earth were directly confined by an enormous cage. Immediately following that, a series of horrifying forces surged towards Yi Xian like tidewater. One punch imprisoning heaven and earth. Yi Xian was expressionless. That sword strike was not retracted. Boom! Suddenly, an expanse of blood-red light exploded in this world, and then the talismans were instantly transformed into nothingness. At the same time, the old man retreated explosively to a distance of 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped moving, the space behind him exploded apart and transformed into a pitch-black expanse. The old man looked at Yi Xian in the distance, his eyes filled with disbelief. You! How can you possibly break my Dao art so easily? The green profound sword. Actually, Yi Xian hadn't activated the energy of time. However, even if he didn't, the green profound sword wasn't something that the Shao Dao art could resist. For example, even if a dragon was dead, it wasn't something that ants could disrespect. If he activated the energy of time, then not to mention the Shao Dao art, even the Time Master's time laws could be destroyed with ease. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, the old man's pupils constricted. He didn't dare play any more flashy tricks, and he immediately charged forward and punched at Yi Xian. It was pure strength. This punch directly smashed onto the tip of Yi Xian's green profound sword. In the next moment, the old man's pupils constricted abruptly. Then, the sword pierced straight into his arm. The old man was horrified, and he hurriedly retreated. However, it was still a little too late. His right arm had been sliced off by Yi Xian's sword. The old man's eyes were filled with astonishment as he gazed at Yi Xian from afar. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Hiss! A blood-red ray of light tore through the surroundings. The old man's pupils constricted abruptly. At this moment, he'd finally realized what the problem was. It wasn't that Yi Xian was too strong, it was that sword in Yi Xian's hand that was too terrifying. It was too sharp. The old man didn't dare to think too much about it because Yi Xian had charged over to him and slashed down. The old man was just about to counterattack when his pupils constricted abruptly. It wasn't a single strike. It was 3 strikes. One for the past, one for the future, and one for the present. 3 strikes had converged into one. The old man was horrified. He didn't dare go head-on against it, and he immediately withdrew a pitch-black shield and placed it in front of him. The sword descended. Bang! The giant shield shattered, and in the next moment, the old man was sent flying by the attack. This time, the old man's body was completely obliterated, and only his soul remained. As soon as the old man stopped moving, Yi Xian's sword arrived once more. The old man's pupils constricted abruptly, and his face was ashen. A single strike to pin down the soul. The green profound sword entered the center of the old man's forehead and pinned down his soul. The old man was just about to speak when the green profound sword shook violently, and then it completely absorbed his soul. It was instantly obliterated. Countless experts from the spirit demon race who were hiding in the shadows were horrified, and they retreated explosively. All the experts above the boundless realm are dead? Who exactly is this young man? Meanwhile, Yi Xian was suddenly stunned because he noticed that Shao An's aura had vanished. In the next moment, Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously like a wild beast, "Get my Shao An out here! If I don't see Shao An in 3 breaths of time, then I'll start slaughtering the entire world." 1. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. The green profound sword tore through the sky, and it covered an area of 500,000 kilometers. The world in an area of 500,000 kilometers was directly slashed into pieces, and boundless killing intent and evil energy instantly swept through the entire spirit demon world. Chapter 2189. Killing Intent. Monstrous killing intent. At this moment, countless experts throughout the spirit devil dimension were shocked. Whose killing intent is actually so strong? 2. Yi Xian's voice resounded once more. His voice was icy cold and completely emotionless. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from the sky. This is the spirit devil dimension. How dare you act presumptuously here? As soon as the voice resounded, the space above Yi Xian suddenly split apart, and then a towering pillar descended straight down. Bang! The space around Yi Xian seethed at this moment. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then the green profound sword in his grasp suddenly vanished. Bang! A blood-red ray of light suddenly slashed down onto the towering pillar. Rumble. In an instant, the pillar exploded apart and transformed into countless pieces that rained down to the ground. The green profound sword continued forward and slashed into that unknown expanse of space. Bang! Suddenly, that unknown expanse of space exploded apart, and then an old man retreated repeatedly. The old man's pupils constricted as soon as he stopped moving. He swiftly raised his head and was about to attack, but a sword had pierced through the center of his forehead. At the same time, Yi Xian appeared in front of him. Yi Xian held the green profound sword with his right hand while a ferocious expression appeared on his face. He slowly exerted force with his right hand, and then he stirred the sword lightly. Hiss! An enormous and blood-red hole was instantly torn open between the old man's brows. Moreover, the old man couldn't move at all, because he was suppressed by the green profound sword. Right at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly assaulted Yi Xian from behind. Meanwhile, Yi Xian swiftly drew the green profound sword, turned around, and slashed. Bang! An expanse of light shook the surroundings, and then an afterimage was blasted back. However, Yi Xian had retreated over 1 kilometer as well. As soon as he stopped moving, the green profound sword in his hand had vanished. Slash the future. A middle-aged man was fighting Yi Xian in the distance. The middle-aged man frowned slightly when he saw the sword in Yi Xian's hand vanish. In the next moment, his pupils constricted, and he swiftly raised his arms to block. Bang! The sword light shattered, and the middle-aged man was sent flying several thousand feet away. When the middle-aged man stopped, Yi Xian's green profound sword had already stabbed into the old man's soul, and his soul was instantly absorbed by the green profound sword. The middle-aged man's face darkened at the sight of this. The middle-aged man was about to speak when Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed out. Chi! The sound of sword energy tearing rang out. The middle-aged man's pupils suddenly shrank. He waved his hands and a huge shield appeared in front of him. Boom! The giant shield instantly shattered, and the middle-aged man was forced to retreat. When the middle-aged man stopped, his body shattered. The middle-aged man was horrified and immediately roared, "This kid is so terrifying. Quick, go to the southern region and invite the Great Spirit Fiend Ancestor. Invite the Great Spirit Demon Ancestor." The expressions of some of the spirit demon race experts changed drastically when they heard the middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was a peak quantitative change realm expert. Even this was not a match for this young man. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted, and then he immediately turned around and fled. He was extremely swift, and he vanished into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian didn't pursue the middle-aged man, and he charged towards the nearby spirit demon race experts instead. The expressions of the spirit demon race experts changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. How could they possibly defeat someone who wasn't even a peak quantitative change realm expert? Some of the spirit demon race experts immediately turned around and fled. However, how could their speed compare to Yi Xian? The green profound sword tore through the battlefield, and then a few thousand heads instantly shot into the sky. It was an extremely bloody scene. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, I've sensed young mistress Xiao An's aura. Head to the right." Yi Xian suddenly stopped, and then he swiftly turned around and flew up on his sword. In the blink of an eye, he vanished into the horizon. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped in the distance, and his expression instantly changed drastically when he saw Yi Xian charging towards that direction. He hurriedly roared furiously, "Stop him! Stop him!" However, no one moved. All the experts of the spirit demon race gazed at the middle-aged man. Would anyone dare to stop him? Damn it! Aren't you tired of living? The middle-aged man's expression was extremely unsightly. He hesitated for a moment before he said, "All of us will die if he's allowed to destroy the formation." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Yi Xian, who was in the distance. Around 10 minutes later, Yi Xian arrived before an old city. The city was extremely strange, and the entire city was enveloped in thick black clouds. Xiao Ta spoke solemnly, "Young master, it's inside." Yi Xian gazed at the old city. Meanwhile, an old man appeared in front of Yi Xian, and the old man stared at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and slashed down with his sword. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. He flipped his palm, and then a pitch-black iron rod appeared in his grasp. In the next moment, he suddenly tapped it forward. Bang! This tap caused the space at the top of the iron rod to sink down, and it formed a strange and enormous vortex. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword slashed down. Bang! The vortex shattered, and then the iron rod was instantly obliterated. The old man's pupils constricted, and then a sword arrived before his forehead. The old man suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then he smashed his fist down. Bang! The sword was forced to a stop, but the old man's entire right arm shattered. The old man was dumbfounded. He gazed at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand, and his voice trembled, "You? What is that? Why is it so terrifying?" In the distance, Yi Xian didn't waste his breath at all. He just transformed into a ray of blood-red light and vanished on the spot. The old man's expression changed drastically. "Not again." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished mysteriously on the spot. A moment later, the space around him split apart, and then rays of black light surged out like an ocean. At this moment, Yi Xian swung his sword fiercely. Bang! The black light in the surroundings was instantly obliterated, and space returned to normal. At the same time, the old man was blasted back against the city wall. The old man had just come into contact with the city wall when the wall shook violently, but it didn't shatter. The green profound sword destroyed all techniques. The old man who'd collided against the city wall was completely stunned. He'd actually been bashed up. A dignified expert at the peak of the quantitative change realm had actually been bashed up by a young man from the outside world. It was an extraordinary humiliation. The old man looked up at Yi Xian, and then his pupils constricted in the next moment. After that, a sword stabbed through his throat and nailed him to the city wall. Yi Xian didn't attack again, and he looked up at the city wall instead. He saw two people there, a middle-aged man and a woman. It was the two of them who'd taken Enlancio away just now. The woman from the spirit demon race, Alan, gazed at Yi Xian with an icy cold gaze. She hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually chase her all the way to the spirit demon race, and she'd never imagined that his strength would actually be so terrifying. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword directly absorbed the old man's soul. A moment later, the sword flew back into Yi Xian's grasp, and he pointed it slowly at Alan. "I'll annihilate 10 of your clans today." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. At the instant he vanished, Xiao Ta had snuck into the city. Lan's eyes narrowed slightly. This is the spirit demon race, not the wastelands. As soon as she finished speaking, she vanished on the spot like a ghost. Meanwhile, a cold ray of light suddenly appeared at Yi Xian's throat. It was even swifter than Yi Xian. However, what Lan never expected was that Yi Xian actually did not dodge or evade, allowing her dagger to slash at his throat. But in the next moment, Lan's pupils suddenly constricted. Immediately after, a stretch of sword light exploded on her head, and Lan was instantly slashed back onto the city wall. Lan had just stopped, and on top of her head, a piece of hard scale shattered into scraps. Lan was rather dumbfounded. Shattered. This scale was the scale shed by the spirit demon race's strongest demonic beast, the spirit demon god. It was incomparably hard, and boundless realm powerhouses were completely unable to injure it. But at this moment, it was actually shattered by a sword just like that? Seemingly thinking of something, Lan looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand in the distance, and her expression was incomparably ugly. Sword. It's this sword. Beside her, that middle-aged man said solemnly, Lan, go to the demon city. Lan stared fixedly at the distant Yi Xian, who was akin to a blood man. I'm not afraid of him. I'm going to kill him. The middle-aged man said angrily, Lan, haven't you seen the situation clearly? This person has the support of this sword, and his strength has already far surpassed the boundless realm. Moreover, we can't allow him to attack here and destroy the array formation here. Otherwise, we won't be able to absolve ourselves of blame even if we die 10,000 times. Lan still wanted to say something, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. Lan's pupils constricted abruptly, and she suddenly grasped the dagger in her hand and slashed forward abruptly. Swish! This slash directly tore apart the spacetime in front of her, and this saber slashed directly onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. Crack! Following a clear sound of breaking resounded out, that dagger directly shattered, and Lan was directly slashed back several tens of kilometers by this sword of Yi Xian's. Lan, who stopped, had eyes filled with disbelief. How is this possible? This dagger of mine was personally forged by a spirit god master. How could it possibly shatter? Right at this moment, that middle-aged man suddenly roared furiously. Watch out! His voice had just resounded out when a sword suddenly appeared in front of Lan. Lan's pupils constricted abruptly, and she suddenly flipped her palm over. A small black seal directly blocked in front of her, and a terrifying demonic beast roar resounded from within the small seal. It shook the heavens and the earth. Bang! The green profound sword was forced to a stop by this roar, but in the next moment, a blood-red ray of light erupted, and the small seal directly exploded apart. The sword continued forward and slashed towards Lan. Lan's pupils constricted, and at this moment, there was finally fear in her eyes. I can't defeat him. At this moment, she finally understood what had happened. Why is this person in front of me so strong? Lan revealed an expression of terror as she gazed at the sword that was getting closer and closer to her, and she was astounded to the extreme. In the next moment, Yi Xian's sword was already pressed against the center of her forehead. Right at this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly assaulted Yi Xian from behind. At the same time, a furious roar resounded from behind Yi Xian. Bastard! If even a single hair on the old man's daughter is missing, then this old man will eat your entire clan. Lan stared fixedly at Yi Xian. My father is the spirit demon ancestor of South Mountain. If you dare harm a single hair on my head. Yi Xian suddenly withdrew his sword. In the next moment, he grabbed up Lan's hair and suddenly lifted her up. Rip! Lan's peerlessly beautiful head was forcibly lifted up by him. It was incomparably bloody. Chapter 2190. How presumptuous! How presumptuous! The old man wants you to suffer a fate worse than death. The spirit demon ancestor suddenly roared furiously. A moment later, he charged forward, and the area where he and Yi Xian resided was instantly transformed into a huge spatial abyss. His strength was too terrifying. A ferocious expression appeared on Yi Xian's face when he saw the old man charge at him. He stomped his right foot against the ground, and then he transformed into a ray of light that vanished on the spot. Hiss! The dark spatial abyss was instantly torn apart by Yi Xian's sword strike. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor's fist smashed against Yi Xian's green sword. Bang! A blood-red ray of light shattered as Yi Xian was blasted into the sky. As soon as his figure stopped moving, the space behind him was instantly obliterated, and powerful force was ceaselessly destroying everything. As for the spirit demon ancestor, he was just about to attack again when he noticed to his astonishment that his right hand had split apart and was bleeding incessantly. The spirit demon ancestor was shocked, and his expression was extremely unsightly as he looked up at the green sword in Yi Xian's grasp. A divine artifact. Yi Xian had his sword held vertically against the center of his forehead while his terrifying aura surged like a tidal wave. The mad demon bloodline. Even though he hadn't gone completely mad at this moment, the formidable energy of his bloodline was still providing him with an endless supply of energy. Moreover, his killing intent and vicious energy were growing stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly gazed at a land's corpse that wasn't too far away from Yi Xian. The latter's head had been separated from her body. Moreover, her soul had been completely obliterated by Yi Xian. There was no chance for her to survive. The spirit demon ancestor's face instantly warped when he witnessed this scene. The old man intends to eat you alive. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and arrived in the air above Yi Xian. A moment later, he spun around and slammed his palm down. As soon as his palm descended, the entire expanse of space in an area of a few tens of thousands of kilometers sunk into an enormous black vortex. The power contained in this palm was enough to shatter the entire world. Down below, Yi Xian raised his head while a vicious expression flashed in his eyes. He suddenly loosened his grip, and the azure profound sword transformed into a sword light that shot into the sky. Buzz! A sword cry resounded throughout the entire spirit demon realm. The Qingxian sword directly cut into the concave black vortex. There was a moment of silence. Boom! An expanse of sword light suddenly exploded out from within the black vortex, causing the heavens and the earth and the surroundings to tremble violently before cracking apart like a spider web. Up in the sky, the spirit demon ancestor's face turned ferocious as he charged at Yi Xian and punched at Yi Xian's head, intending to crush Yi Xian to pieces. Yi Xian was not to be outdone. Without dodging or evading, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. 3 swords as one. Boom! An expanse of sword light shook the surroundings. In the next moment, the old man was blasted 3 kilometers back, and he'd just stopped moving when another ray of sword light slashed towards him. The old man suddenly roared furiously as he suddenly pressed his palms forward, and a black light surged out. In an instant, the heavens and the earth darkened as if night had descended. Boom! The sword light was directly obliterated by this formidable force. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had already retreated 3 kilometers back. The spirit demon ancestor looked at Yi Xian in the distance, and there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes at this moment. A swordsman. When did such a super swordsman appear in the wastelands? Why have I never heard of him before? In the distance, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and the azure profound sword in his hand trembled violently. In the blink of an eye, the spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted. Slash! As soon as he finished speaking, his body became illusory. But right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly attacked. Slash the present. They attacked at the same time. The spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted, and he hurriedly spread open his right hand and pressed it down lightly. As soon as he pressed down, a terrifying force suddenly surged out from all around him. Boundless power. However, this was boundless power that had undergone a qualitative change. Boom! As soon as Yi Xian's sword arrived, it was suppressed and distorted by this terrifying force. But in the next moment, it was shattered by the azure profound sword. The sword pierced straight at the spirit demon ancestor. The spirit demon ancestor's pupils constricted, and he hastily crossed his arms to block the attack. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor was pushed back several thousands of meters by Yi Xian's sword strike. Yi Xian was about to attack again when an afterimage suddenly charged at him from his right. Yi Xian spun around and slashed down with his sword. Hiss! A sword light tore through the world. Boom! The afterimage was pushed back repeatedly by Yi Xian's sword strike. It was a middle-aged spirit demon ancestor in a black robe. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. Who the hell are you? In fact, he was a little confused at this moment. Where did this swordsman come from? Did the wastelands come for revenge? But as far as he knew, there wasn't such a strong swordsman in the wasteland. It doesn't matter who he is. The spirit demon ancestor said fiercely, this person came to my spirit demon world and slaughtered my clansmen. He even killed the old man's daughter. The old man wants him to beg for death. As soon as he finished speaking, he slowly soared into the sky, pressed his palms together, and closed his eyes. Demon arrival. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor's body shook violently. In the next moment, an enormous head appeared behind him, and beneath the head was a 30,000-meter tall body. Demon arrival. It was a supreme divine ability. As soon as this illusory figure appeared, a terrifying pressure descended from the sky like the sky was collapsing, and the entire world trembled. Countless spirit demon clan experts retreated hastily, not daring to stay here. Because the aura was too terrifying. Just the aura alone was enough to crush the world. In the distance, Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand with a calm expression. Meanwhile, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly pointed a finger at Yi Xian with fury. Die, ant! As soon as he finished speaking, the illusory figure behind him raised its right palm and slapped it down at Yi Xian. As soon as this palm descended, the world started to seethe and burn. It was utterly unable to endure the might of this palm. Before this palm, Yi Xian was like a small boat amidst tempestuous waves, and he was tiny like an ant. Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he suddenly raised his thumb lightly as the palm descended. Hiss! The green profound sword suddenly flew forward, and then it was a ray of blood-red light that shot through the sky and slashed down on the palm. Bang! In an instant, the enormous palm that could hold up the sky was directly torn apart like tofu, and it wasn't just that, the enormous image was instantly shattered and obliterated. Bang! The spirit demon ancestor who was beneath the illusory figure was blasted over 30 kilometers away. The spirit demon ancestor was stunned after he stopped moving. The spirit demon ancestor gazed at Yi Xian with disbelief on his face. How could this be possible? My demon descent was dealt with just like that? How could this be possible? Meanwhile, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke in a low voice, that sword in his hand. The spirit demon ancestor gazed at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand with an extremely unsightly expression. At this moment, he'd realized that the core of the problem was this sword. The middle-aged man suddenly turned to look at the man nearby. It was the man who'd brought Enlancio to the spirit demon territory with Alan. The middle-aged man stared at the man. Mosen, what happened? The man called Mosen hesitated for a moment, and then he told the middle-aged man everything that had happened. The middle-aged man's face was gloomy after he finished listening. Where's that woman now? Mosen spoke in a low voice, sacrificing the 10 demon kings. The middle-aged man's face instantly turned unsightly, and he turned to look at the city. As if he'd thought of something, he looked at Yi Xian again. When he saw Yi Xian standing there without moving, a trace of unease arose in his heart. Something's not right. Someone, gather all the experts here immediately. Mosen was shocked, and he hurriedly took out a talisman and crushed it. In the next moment, countless experts from the entire spirit demon territory rushed over madly. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Get out of the formation. No one is allowed to approach Lin City. Lin City. This was the current forbidden area of the spirit demon territory. Because the top experts of the spirit demon territory were in deep slumber here. These experts were the experts who'd fought the Great Wilderness all those years ago. All of them had been heavily injured and were recuperating now. They absolutely couldn't be disturbed. In a short period of time, thousands of spirit demon territory experts had gathered in the sky above Lin City. Moreover, there were dozens of mysterious grand formations around Lin City. An impregnable fortress. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian in the distance, and the unease in his heart grew stronger. What is he waiting for? In the distance, the spirit demon ancestor said fiercely, City Lord Yifeng, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and give the order to kill this person. Yifeng said angrily, can we kill him? It wasn't that he didn't want to, but with their current strength, they couldn't kill the youth in front of them at all. This youth's strength was too terrifying. The spirit demon ancestor's face was gloomy. Then what are you waiting for? Yifeng glanced coldly at the spirit demon ancestor, and then turned to look at Yi Xian in the distance. Your Excellency, you, right at this moment, Yi Xian, who was originally motionless in the distance, suddenly turned his head and looked towards Lin City. In the next moment, Tiny Pagoda's voice suddenly sounded out in his mind. Young Lord, I've found young Lord Shaoan. She's in a very dangerous situation. Come quickly. The voice was trembling. Shaoan. Yi Xian's figure trembled slightly when he heard this, and then he transformed into a ray of light that shot towards Lin City. Yi Feng's expression instantly changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. Stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, countless spirit demon race experts suddenly charged at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned around and swung his sword. Hiss. In an instant, a few dozen heads shot into the sky. Meanwhile, the Lin City's formation suddenly activated, and then a few dozen beams of light shot towards Yi Xian. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Yi Xian's eyes, and then he flashed forward and slashed down with his sword. Hiss. The dozens of beams of light were instantly obliterated. Meanwhile, Yifeng stood in front of Yi Xian. His expression was ferocious as he clenched his right hand into a fist, and then he suddenly charged forward and smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's face. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta's voice suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind once more. Young Lord, you. Come quickly. You. Be fucking quick. His voice trembled, and it carried a trace of terror. Chapter 2191. Yi Xian panicked once more when he heard Xiao Ta's voice. At this moment, he disregarded everything. Yi Xian suddenly charged towards Lin City. Yi Feng's expression instantly changed drastically, and he stood in front of Yi Xian again. He was just about to attack when a sword pierced through the center of his forehead. The green profound sword. The green profound sword that had activated the energy of time. He'd instantly annihilated a quantity transformation realm expert with a single strike. In the next moment, all the formations in the sky above Lin City were destroyed, and the entire city wall vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had charged into the city. Behind him, the spirit demon ancestor and the others were petrified on the spot. He was instantly annihilated. Yifeng was instantly annihilated. The spirit demon ancestor's mind went blank. He seemed to have thought of something, and his body trembled slightly before he hurriedly charged towards Lin City. In the distant city, Yi Xian stopped. At this moment, he was standing before an altar, and he saw Enlancio there. At this moment, Enlancio was lying on the altar with a pale face, and her soul was so weak that it was practically non-existent. Xiao Ta hurriedly said, "Young master, young mistress and soul has been restrained by a mysterious formation, and they've been constantly absorbing her soul. Quickly, quickly let little Hun." Meanwhile, Yi Xian's green profound sword suddenly vanished, and then it appeared in front of Enlanchio's forehead. Bang! The green profound sword pierced into Enlanchio's body, and a powerful and mysterious force was instantly severed. The altar in the distance trembled slightly, and then a terrifying aura seeped out from it. Little Hun suddenly said, "Young master, I've restrained young mistress and soul. However, she's very weak right now, and she needs to recuperate." Yi Xian walked slowly over to Enlanchio's side, and then Enlanchio slowly opened her eyes. She was slightly stunned when she saw Yi Xian, and then she said softly, "You're here?" Yi Xian slowly squatted down, grabbed Enlanchio's hand, and spoke gently, "I'm sorry I was late." Enlanchio shook her head slightly, "I dragged you into this." Yi Xian shook his head. "Don't be so polite." Enlanchio was slightly stunned. She looked at Yi Xian who was covered in blood, and she suddenly had an indescribable complicated feeling in her heart. He still cared about her. At this time, the spirit demon ancestor suddenly appeared not far behind Yi Xian with a group of spirit demon world's experts. The spirit demon ancestor looked at Yi Xian with a trace of fear in his eyes. Yi Xian's strength had slightly exceeded his expectations. Yi Xian said softly, "Heal your wounds first." Enlanchio nodded slightly. "All right." Yi Xian directly sent Enlanchio to Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta hurriedly took out those heavenly treasures of Yi Xian, as well as the medicinal pills that Yang Nianxue had left for Yi Xian. In front of the altar, Yi Xian turned around and looked at the spirit demon ancestor. What did she do wrong? The spirit demon ancestor stared at Yi Xian. "It's her honor to be eaten by my spirit demon clan." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Spirit demon clan. I understand." As soon as his voice fell, he vanished on the spot. Boom! He had completely entered a state of madness. At this moment, Yi Xian's aura instantly skyrocketed. Endless killing intent and hostility swept through the entire Lin city. In the distance, the spirit demon ancestor's pupils shrank abruptly. He could smell the scent of death. He couldn't block this sword. Die. That was the only thought in the spirit demon ancestor's mind. However, he didn't sit still and wait for death. He clenched his right hand and punched forward with all his strength. The punch landed directly on Yi Xian's profound azure sword. It was a head-on clash. Chi! Yi Xian's profound azure sword pierced through the spirit demon ancestor's right hand without any resistance and pierced his chest along his arm. Boom! The spirit demon ancestor's body shook violently, and his soul swiftly vanished. The spirit demon ancestor stared blankly at Yi Xian, who was inches away from him. "You," Yi Xian slashed with his sword. Chi! The spirit demon ancestor's head flew off. The next moment, the profound azure sword in Yi Xian's hand flew out. In the blink of an eye, the heads of the spirit demon clan experts in the field flew off one after another. Instant kill. In a short time, all the spirit demon clan experts in the field were slaughtered. Moreover, all of them were instant kills. No one could withstand a single strike from Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian didn't stop there. He suddenly leaped into the sky, his lips curling into a ferocious smile, and he hurled the sword down with his right hand. Chi! The profound azure sword shot down like a meteor, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. In an instant, the entire universe boiled and burned. Bury the spirit demon realm. Below, some of the spirit demon clan experts hiding in the dark were filled with terror. Was this young man going to destroy the entire spirit demon realm? If the sword fell, even if it couldn't bury the spirit demon realm, it would definitely heavily injure it. Right at this moment, one of the sacrificial altars in the distant Lin city trembled slightly. In the next moment, a shadow flashed out from within it, and in the blink of an eye, the shadow had already arrived in the horizon. He suddenly punched out, causing a fist print to sweep up and intercept Yi Xian's sword strike. Boom! That fist print actually blocked Yi Xian's Qingxian sword. In an instant, a terrifying force erupted from the point where the fist and the sword came into contact. This force swept through the entire world like a tidal wave. Boom! At this moment, the world around them boiled and then began to burn. Below, the figure gradually solidified. It was a middle-aged man dressed in black robes. With a sudden sweep of his right hand, the burning flames were swept away. One of the 10 great demon kings, King Qi. He had once conquered the great wilderness. He was a true super expert. King Qi looked at Yi Xian in the sky, his face expressionless. Slaughter my spirit demon realm? Are you worthy? Up in the sky, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Within the profound azure sword, the power of time silently activated. Down below, King Qi narrowed his eyes. He half-squatted and put his palms together. In the next moment, he punched out repeatedly. In just an instant, he had punched at least tens of thousands of times. In an instant, heavy fist seals shook the heavens. Before everyone's eyes, Yi Xian's sword easily tore through the heavy fist seals. In the next moment, sword light flashed, and the profound azure sword pierced through King Qi's forehead. Qi! King Qi's eyes widened in disbelief. Your sword, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of King Qi. He thrust his sword forward, and the entire sword sank into the ground. Am I worthy? King Qi stared at Yi Xian. I just came out of seclusion, and my strength isn't even at 60% of my peak. You, Yi Xian suddenly slashed out. King Qi's head flew over 1 kilometer into the distance. The experts of the spirit demon race who were hiding in the shadows were filled with disbelief. One of the 10 great demon kings, King Qi, has been killed just like that? Yi Xian suddenly leaped up, and he appeared in the starry sky a moment later. After that, he suddenly tossed the profound azure sword down. The sword tore through the sky, and it carried the powerful energy of time with it. The expressions of all the experts of the spirit demon race below instantly changed. The sword was extremely swift, and it stabbed into the ground in the blink of an eye. Bang! In an instant, the entire spirit demon world trembled, and a powerful force erupted from the depths of the ground like a wave. Rumble. At this moment, the entire spirit demon world shook violently like an earthquake. The quintessence of the spirit demon world had been destroyed. A ferocious expression appeared on Yi Xian's face as he pressed his right hand down towards the abyss below. Die. The profound azure sword shook violently within the abyss, and then it pierced deep into the earth. Bang! The depths of the earth vein suddenly exploded. Immediately after, a large amount of lava shot up into the sky from the ground and into the clouds. Rumble. The entire spirit demon world started to shatter. Countless earth veins were destroyed, spirit energy dried up, and monstrous rays of light raged through the world. All the experts of the spirit demon race were horrified. This young man really intends to destroy the spirit demon world. Meanwhile, a terrifying aura suddenly shot into the sky from Lin City, and then a middle-aged man walked out slowly into the sky. King Yen. The experts of the spirit demon race exclaimed in secret. King Yen was the leader of the 10 great demon kings. King Yan's wife gazed at Yi Xian. When did a swordsman like you appear in the grand wilderness? Yi Xian opened his palm, and a ray of light descended into his grasp. After the light dispersed, the profound azure sword appeared again. Yi Xian looked down at King Yen with monstrous rage. You hurt my lover, so I'll slaughter all your cities. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. The ray of light shot down like a shooting star. It slashed straight at King Yen. King Yen narrowed his eyes. He opened his palm, and a spear suddenly appeared in his hand. At the same time, a damaged ancient shield appeared in his left hand. Immortal subduing spear. God-burying shield. This was no ordinary item. It was a super-divine item of the spirit demon race. King Yen suddenly took a step forward, and the spear in his hand shot out like an arrow, instantly piercing the tip of Yi Xian's profound azure sword. It was a head-on clash. Boom! The moment the spear and sword came into contact, Yi Xian was instantly blasted back into the depths of space, and King Yen also returned to his original spot. When he came to a stop, his expression instantly turned solemn. Because his immortal subduing spear had cracked. Cracked. King Yen narrowed his eyes and looked up at the profound azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. What sword is that? How could it crack my immortal subduing spear? His immortal subduing spear had accompanied him in battle for countless years, and it had never cracked. Even Xing Huang, the #1 expert of the Grand Wilderness, had failed to shatter it. But now, it had actually cracked. For the first time, King Yan's eyes turned solemn. He stared fixedly at Yi Xian in the depths of space. Fight! As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched the fairy vanquishing spear tightly in his right hand. The fairy vanquishing spear shook violently, and a terrifying battle will swept out of it. In an instant, the battle will dispersed Yi Xian's evil aura and murderous intent in the air. The powerful battle intent swept through the cosmos, causing the world to tremble. At the same time, after the powerful battle intent appeared, the cracked immortal subduing spear actually recovered. The battle intent was inextinguishable. The immortal subduing spear was everlasting. The ancient burial shield was everlasting. King Yen stared straight at Yi Xian in space. My spirit demon race has existed for millions of years. How can it be destroyed so easily? With that, he pointed the immortal subduing spear at Yi Xian. Come and fight. We will not rest until death. Come and fight. The two words were like a deafening clap of thunder. In the sky, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. His expression was incomparably savage. Shaoan, watch carefully. If the spirit demon race hurts even a hair on your head, I'll slaughter his entire race. With that, he flipped his right hand, and the green profound sword suddenly surged with a terrifying force into his body. Boom! Yi Xian attained immortality on the spot. At that moment, another terrifying force surged into Yi Xian's body. Boom! Yi Xian attained boundless realm on the spot. In the sky, Yi Xian looked down at King Yen with a sinister smile. Why must we not rest until death? I'll kill you with one strike. With that, he suddenly stomped his right foot and stabbed down with his sword. One strike to decide life and death. Buzz! With that strike, countless sword cries resounded across the universe. P.S. Please give me a ticket. Also, you guys scold me every day and call me weak. Can you praise me? I want to hear you guys praise someone. Chapter 2192. Deciding life and death with one strike. Qing Er's words echoed in his ears. With this strike, the enemy's life and death are in my hands. If I want them to live, they live. If I want them dead, they die. In the sky, Yi Xian slashed down with his sword, tearing everything apart. Below, Monarch Yen narrowed his eyes. Facing Yi Xian's terrifying strike, there was no fear in his eyes. On the contrary, his fighting spirit intensified. Slash! Monarch Yen stomped his right foot and soared into the sky. Chi! In an instant, heaven and earth were torn apart. The two clashed head-on. After a moment of silence, boom! Suddenly, a wave of sword light exploded in the sky. In the next moment, a figure plummeted from the sky and smashed into the ground. When he hit the ground collapsed into a bottomless abyss. This person was Monarch Yen. After Monarch Yen crashed into the ground, his body was destroyed and his soul dissipated at a visible speed. The immortal subduing spear in his hand was broken into two. The immortal subduing spear trembled slightly and emitted a mournful hum. Monarch Yen looked at Yi Xian standing in the sky, his eyes filled with confusion. What sword is that? Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Monarch Yen. Without a word, he thrust his sword into the space between Monarch Yan's eyebrows. Boom! Monarch Yan's soul trembled violently and then rapidly dissipated. At this moment, the ancient burial shield beside him suddenly trembled violently and smashed toward Yi Xian. Protecting its master. Yi Xian turned and slashed. Boom! The ancient burial ground shield shattered, but it wasn't completely broken. It only split into two pieces. There was no divine item under the azure profound sword. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned his head. Not far away to his right, there stood a woman dressed in a black robe. The woman looked a little old, and there were some scribbles on her face. She held a dark red walking stick in her hand, which seemed to be condensed from blood. It was extremely alluring. A spirit demon divine master. She held an extremely high position in the spirit demon race. The spirit demon divine master looked at Yi Xian. Who forged that sword of yours? Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed. A sword light slashed straight at divine priest spirit demon. However, just as the sword light arrived, the spirit demon divine master disappeared without a trace. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The spirit demon divine master stared at Yi Xian. This sword is extraordinary, and it wasn't forged by a mortal. Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. The spirit demon priest suddenly waved his right hand. Boom! A wave of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was instantly knocked back to his original spot. And on his chest, there was a blood-red handprint. The spirit demon divine master glared at Yi Xian. I've checked just now. You're not from the great wilderness. Since you're not, why are you targeting the spirit demon race? The green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand trembled slightly, and a powerful force suddenly surged out from the green profound sword. The spirit demon divine master narrowed his eyes. The power of time. Someone is actually able to fuse the supreme power of time into the sword. Who are you? Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A cold glow flashed through the spirit demon divine master's eyes, and she suddenly stabbed the walking stick in her right hand forward. Bang! The wave of sword light shattered, and Yi Xian was blasted over 10 kilometers away. However, the walking stick in the spirit demon divine master's hand cracked open as well. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly became extremely unsightly when he saw the crack on the walking stick. The spirit demon divine master raised his head to look at Yi Xian, and then Yi Xian suddenly slashed down with his sword. 3 swords combined into one. The spirit demon divine master's eyes narrowed slightly. Child's play. As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve, and the space here warped. A moment later, Yi Xian suddenly retreated repeatedly, and he moved over 1 kilometer back. When Yi Xian stopped moving, the spirit demon divine master suddenly charged forward and grabbed Yi Xian's throat. After that, a powerful force pressed down on Yi Xian and smashed him against the ground. However, at this moment, a dreadful power suddenly erupted from Yi Xian's body. Bang! Blood erupted like a tide. The spirit demon divine master's eyes were opened, and then she tilted her head slightly to the side. As soon as she did, a sword brushed past her nose. She dodged it by a hair's breadth. Yi Xian hurriedly withdrew his sword after his attack failed, but it was still a little too late. He suddenly felt like his stomach had been struck by an iron hammer. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted flying. Meanwhile, the spirit demon divine master clawed at Yi Xian from afar, and the space where Yi Xian resided warped. Yi Xian raised his hand and swung his sword. Hiss! Even space was shattered. The spirit demon divine master frowned slightly at the sight of this. Your sword. Suddenly, Yi Xian turned around and transformed into a ray of sword light that vanished into the horizon. The spirit demon divine master was slightly stunned. He fled? In the next moment, his pupils constricted. Yi Xian didn't flee but went to the demon city. The spirit demon world's capital city was a place where experts were nurtured. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly became unsightly. How dare you? As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had arrived in the sky above the demon city. He didn't waste his breath and suddenly drew his sword and slashed. A ray of sword energy slashed down from the sky and into the city. Hiss! The sword energy swept across thousands of miles. In an instant, the defensive formation of the entire city was torn apart like a piece of paper, and the sword energy slashed into the city. Bang! The entire city was instantly split into two, and the shrill cries of countless spirit demon experts resounded. In an instant, the entire city was like purgatory. Meanwhile, the spirit demon divine master appeared. She was about to speak, but Yi Xian charged into the city. In the next moment, bloody heads flew into the sky. In front of Yi Xian, those spirit demon powerhouses did not even have the strength to fight back. The spirit demon divine master's expression was ferocious. She suddenly vanished on the spot, and a bolt of lightning tore through the battlefield. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. With a thought, the azure sword transformed into a sword shield that blocked in front of him. Bang! The bolt of lightning struck the azure sword shield, causing it to tremble violently. Countless bolts of lightning shot out, but the azure sword was completely unharmed. The spirit demon divine master frowned at this scene. This sword can be used for defense? Yi Xian paid no attention to the spirit demon divine master. He suddenly turned around and charged into the city. Slaughter the entire city. Slaughter 10,000 cities. He wasn't joking. It was fine to hit him, Yi Xian, but not his family. Not even the emperor himself. If you dare hurt my family, I'll slaughter 10,000 of your cities. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly turned ferocious when she saw Yi Xian going to slaughter another city. Fight me if you have the ability. However, Yi Xian paid no attention to her. Do I need you to tell me if I can defeat you? It's precisely because I can't defeat you that I'll fight you. The spirit demon divine master's expression instantly turned unsightly when she saw Yi Xian ignore her. Although she was stronger than Yi Xian had that sword. She couldn't do anything to Yi Xian, at least not for a while. Moreover, Yi Xian refused to fight her. The spirit demon divine master had no choice but to stop Yi Xian because the top-rate experts of the spirit demon world were in deep slumber. Only she could stop Yi Xian. She charged towards Yi Xian. She had to keep Yi Xian busy. Yi Xian suddenly turned around and slashed down with his sword. An expanse of blood-red light exploded apart. Bang! Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. But in the next moment, countless swords suddenly flew out from within him. These swords weren't aimed at the spirit demon divine master but the surrounding experts of the spirit demon race. Even though these swords weren't the azure sword, they weren't something that ordinary experts could resist. After all, Yi Xian's cultivation had been forcefully raised by 2 realms. In an instant, countless shrill cries resounded. The spirit demon divine master had a savage expression on her face, and she was slightly exasperated. How shameless! You bully the weak and fear the strong. How shameless! Yi Xian paid no attention to the spirit demon divine master. He just turned around and charged towards the depths of the city. The spirit demon divine master roared furiously, "Come at me if you have the ability." As soon as she finished speaking, she charged towards Yi Xian. She was extremely swift, and she arrived behind Yi Xian in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly turned around. He didn't draw his sword, and he just transformed the azure sword into a shield that blocked in front of him. Bang! A bolt of lightning directly exploded on the azure profound sword shield. The sword shield violently trembled and completely blocked that bolt of lightning. At this moment, Yi Xian noticed a problem. If he went head-on against the spirit demon divine master, he noticed that while the azure sword would be fine if he couldn't hold on, he wouldn't be able to. The spirit demon divine master was too strong, and if he exerted force as well, then the collision of their forces would result in an even greater force. Moreover, he couldn't resist that force at all. However, if he only focused on defense, then he noticed that the old woman couldn't do anything to him at all. A one-sided attack couldn't do anything to him. When he thought up to this point, a thought suddenly arose in Yi Xian's mind. However, he suppressed that thought. After all, it wasn't the time to create a martial technique. It was the time to kill. Kill until blood flowed like a river. Yi Xian collected his thoughts, turned around, and charged into the distance. The spirit demon divine master's expression turned sinister. She suddenly leaped into the air, and countless bolts of divine lightning flickered in the sky. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't care about her at all. I don't care about your ultimate move, I have the azure sword shield. I'll be invincible. In the sky, the spirit demon divine master opened her palm and silently chanted an incantation. Countless bolts of black divine lightning suddenly gathered in the sky above the demon city, and a terrifying pressure swept down from the sky. In an instant, the space within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles began to boil like boiling water. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt that something was amiss. He quickly stopped and turned to look at the spirit demon divine master. The spirit demon divine master glared at Yi Xian, and her murderous intent was so intense that it seemed to materialize. Yi Xian said solemnly, "If you use this ultimate move, many spirit demons will die in this city. Are you sure you want to do this?" The spirit demon divine master said sinisterly, "What's the difference between you killing them and me killing them? It's all death, isn't it?" Yi Xian gave her a thumbs up, "You're a ruthless person." The spirit demon divine master didn't waste any more words. She suddenly pressed her hands down, and countless bolts of divine lightning swept down from the sky. The powerful pressure directly caused the entire demon city to tremble violently. With a thought, the azure sword shield blocked in front of Yi Xian, and he took out the small gun and aimed it at the spirit demon divine master. This time, he directly asked Xiao Ta to feed the small gun 10,000 star god veins. 10,000. It was still very painful. Just as Yi Xian was about to pull the trigger, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young lord, wait." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "Wait my ass, I'm going to blow this old woman up." Saying that, he was about to pull the trigger when Xiao Ta suddenly said angrily, "Blow your ass, you're holding the gun the wrong way again. Are you trying to blow yourself up so that I can inherit your legacy?" Yi Xian. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.